Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. I humbly acknowledge the land we live, learn, work, and play is Treaty 8 territory, traditional lands of Cree and Dene, and unceded territory of the Métis people. I'd like to, for the record, Councillor Ball, Councillor Stroud, and Councillor Cardinal joining us via Teams. And Councillors, if you have your video cameras on for voting purposes, it would be appreciated. If anyone in council wishes to address on any of the agenda items, please register with the Legislative Services desk located to my right, and it's only calling upon those who have registered prior to the agenda item started. And for a reminder, you have 5 minutes to present. Please remain on topic and remain seated for questions afterwards. Before we adopt the agenda, does anyone wishes to serve notice of motion? Can I have someone to make the motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Grandison.
I move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. And thank you for the second, Councillor Boussier. I'll call for a vote. I'm not going out of Thank you, Councillor Stroud.
Not coming up on my screen, so in favor.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Ball. And Councillor Cardinal?
I think your screen is frozen.
Hey, Mom.
Councillor Cardinal, your screen seems to be frozen.
I guess it is, yeah. Not too much I can do about that.
How do you vote, Councillor Cardinal?
Yes.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Moving on to consent agenda, does anyone wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Grandison.
I move that recommendations contained in item 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6.4 be approved.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Can someone second that? Thanks, Councillor Banjoko. And we'll call for the vote. Thanks, Councillor Stroud. Thanks, Councillor Ball.
I'm going to restart my computer.
Councillor Cardinal.
Big thumbs up, Mayor.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Moving on, we have the Regional Advisory Committee on Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee update. I'd like to invite KG Banjoko, Mitchel Bowers, Regional Advisory Committee on Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, and Kelly Hansen, Organizational Support Services, to present, please.
I don't know. Are we taking it away?
Your light's on, KG, so Alexa, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is KG Banjoko, the chair of Reside. And I'm joined with my co-chair, Mitchel, or vice chair, Mitchel Bowers. And we're here to do kind of our first update in a number of years to council. And in light of that, we would like to ask council for more time for our presentation.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we're going to be going over our committee mandate, progress review, E&I organizational action plan, milestones that are underway, our strategic plan, and continuing work and next steps, as well as providing council with crucial resources. So our mandate was kind of generated in 2006 after the RMWB was one of the first municipalities in Alberta to show their commitment to inclusion by becoming a signatory of UNESCO's Coalition of Inclusive Municipalities, striking this council-appointed committee, the Regional Advisory Committee on Inclusion, Diversity, and Equality. Our mandate is to advise council and engage the community on policies, programs, and activities that promote inclusion, diversity, and equity, and ensure that the contributions, interests, and needs of all sectors of the municipality's diverse population are reflected in the RMWB's mission, operations, and service delivery. So our responsibilities are to foster and promote awareness, advise, and foster the development of policies, explore strategies that encourage proactive responses, develop strategies to remove barriers, and advise and report to council on an annual or as-needed basis on circumstances. And so following the census in 2020, which provided a baseline data, and the anti-racism motion from council, there's been much progress on the recommendations and initiatives being worked on to advance equity and inclusion within the organization, as well as in the region. The E&I office, that's been largely led by Christelle up until this point, has been working in partnership with other divisions, doing an incredible amount of work, including ongoing improvements to the hiring and recruitment process. And there's been an organization-wide focus on mental health, and they've grown immensely. So the organizational E&I framework is one of the guiding documents that inform our work. It's informed by our community, it includes research, benchmarking, and community partners' results. That's not where we are. Oh. So the organizational commitments and actions established fall under 4 pillars: to increase resources, accelerate actions, and create accountability for equity and inclusion, embed equity and inclusion into our organizational culture and daily operations, expand training and development to support ongoing learning and improvement, and improve supports for equity-deserving groups. So there are a few key factors that ensure the success of this framework. They're based on international and national best practices. These include integration throughout the organization, commitment and leadership from senior management, support for people experiencing racism and discrimination, and providing safer spaces for healing. Focus on sustained long-term organizational change, shared responsibility, and individual accountability. Some of the progress that's been done under the 4 action pillars are the E&I office that was formed in 2021, and they work interdepartmentally with other members who support that work from their respective divisions. The employee census was recently redone in 2023 as a part of the municipality's commitment to understanding and monitoring the current state of diversity and inclusion. So there was a current So that census was launched in partnership with the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, and it was completed with a 43.7 response rate. The findings highlight that there are areas still for improvement, but there have also been positive changes made over time. The strategies and results of the survey will be socialized with employees and made available to the public during Q2, and those results of the census are shared to the public to maintain transparency. There's also been expanded training and developments with the establishment of the anti-racism training, which set up an interdepartmental working group to determine a framework for anti-racism training in response to the council resolution. That working group has reviewed current training materials available through various post-secondary institutions, the Alberta Civil Liberties Research Center, and various other organizations. The E&I office has been working with the Multicultural Association and has created a preliminary draft of the online portion, which has been reviewed by us and is being finalized. As well as anti-racism, there's also been accessibility and disability awareness within the RMWB, and the E&I office has introduced autism and neurodiversity in the workplace training, which is a free training provided by the University of BC for managers, supervisors, and anyone who wants to gain new tools. So far, 17 employees have completed the training and 52 more are registered. GBA Plus, Gender-Based Analysis Plus, is a tool that's used to assess policies, programs, or initiatives through a lens of the potential impacts they might have on diverse groups of people. A few departments in the RMWB have asked to be trained. Meaningful changes are being made to assessment processes. We have one specific example in the procurement team. The tool ensures that gender, age, education, race, language, and other intersecting identities are considered as we involve and develop policies, programs, or initiatives. And it's helpful in exploring root causes and developing more efficient and impactful policies and programs. The municipality is incorporating that into their overall approach to anti-racism, equity, and inclusion. So in addition to that, 53 leaders in the organization, including members of the senior leadership team, have received a full day of training on inclusive leadership and have gotten an in-depth introduction to equity and inclusion as part of the ongoing learning efforts. The E&I office continues to promote to us LGBTQ plus age-friendly training as well, and inclusive leadership training, as well as unconscious bias training. Number 3 is to embed equity and inclusion into our organizational structure and daily operations. So it was really cool. There's been a directors and managers table set up, which is a platform for senior leadership and managers to help them further develop as champions in this equity, inclusion, and diversity work. The managers and directors table takes place each quarter and has been having a successful attendance rate, which shows commitment and willingness to learn. And the equity and inclusion framework is one of the crucial milestones of the action plan, and more information will be coming to council in the future. Number 4 pillar is to improve supports. So a RESIDE working group was created for the development of an anti-racism policy. A draft has been created based on a policy environmental scan to identify best practices across the country and previously collected local input that was taken on anti-racism. The draft has also been reviewed by the E&I office and the Wellbeing Committee. The policy draft will receive final input from RESIDE this month before going to legal for final review. The E&I office also partnered with the safety team to review the Violence and Harassment Directive with an equity lens to ensure that harassment based on all the different protected grounds were addressed through the directive and concerns about retaliation were addressed. We've also got the allyship and bystander training, which was done in partnership with Learn. The E&I office developed the Unlocking the Power of Allyship for employees to learn skills to better address instances of inappropriate comments or behaviors, and also to gain an understanding of how they can use their positional power and voice to advance equity and inclusion, not only within the organization, but also in their daily operations. The allyship was recently launched and so far has received positive feedback. Another major project on the horizon this year is the development of an equity and inclusion framework, which is an updated diversity and inclusion plan. The framework will help steer the municipality through this journey and create shared goals, strategies, and accountability. Further, as is the goal with reconciliation, the framework will embed equity and inclusion work throughout the organization, ensuring that it is part of the municipality's daily operations. It will include new and crucial elements, including a change management plan, co-creating solutions with the community. The framework is using an appreciative inquiry approach, which focuses on identifying strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and feasible results that will be measured to build accountability into the framework. An environmental scan of the strategic documentation and engagement processes has already been initiated with multiple communities and committees. Equity is a core value, and we want people to understand their role in creating an equitable workplace. Everyone needs to practice anti-racism. And so in 2023, Reside completed a committee strategic plan using an integrated approach by applying human-centered design, thinking, and strategic planning. Mitchel's going to tell you a bit more about that in the following slides and take you through some critical next steps that Reside is contemplating.
Yeah, so from our strategic plan, our three main topics that we wanted to focus on were health and safety, accessibility and accommodation, and public education. So looking at health and safety, our strategic actions were enhancing supports for mental health services, as well as increased education around mental health supports available in the community. So some of the things that we've done to work towards that are a 3-day mental health first aid with First Nations. There has been a mental health collective formed with the help of administration. One of those sessions focused specifically on gender-affirming mental health care, as that was an identified need in the community. And the second strategic action was about public education and increasing understanding around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some of the highlights that we've worked on with that is, like KG mentioned, working with the Multicultural Association to develop an anti-racism training, which is expected to launch later this fall. Administration secured a grant for the Women's Economic Recovery Provincial Grant for the launch and implementation of the Workplace Inclusion Charter. And we've been engaging with community members and organizations to collect information for the Development Awareness Campaign, which will be launching hopefully later this year as well. And then looking at priority 3 with accessibility and accommodation. The first action was coordinating awareness, education, and training around the topic of accessibility and ageism. And so we've worked with community services to increase understanding about accessibility. There was Accessibility 101 training provided to staff and community service providers. There was accessibility customer service training. And we also recognized International Day for People with Disabilities to build awareness about the importance of accessibility and build understanding of the challenges that might be experienced by people using municipal facilities. The second part of accessibility and accommodation was actually improving those issues, not just educating about them. So with that, we have completing accessibility audits of not just municipal buildings, but also buildings that receive frequent public use, and been working with those owners as well as with the municipality itself to address any accessibility issues that have come forward. And then, of course, the Workplace Inclusion Charter has also been part of that. So making businesses, giving them the resources to make themselves more inclusive and the recognition to go along with that. So yeah, the Workplace Inclusion Charter, as of now, there's 38 organizations from different industries across the region who are signed on. The strategy is looking to address the gaps residents reported in terms of equity and inclusion in the workplace. Businesses that are part of the program are supported by inclusion coaches who share best practices and provide guidance during the implementation process. The businesses who complete a series of commitments will be recognized for their efforts. The municipality also joined as signatories working towards implementing a series of commitments, including new best practices in the hiring and recruitment process, development of equity and inclusion policy, diverse representation guidelines, and inclusive languages, best practices, employee resource groups, among others. So as we're looking ahead, there are quite a few concerns that we have as a committee and that we are focusing on. First, we are finalizing input and review of the anti-racism policy and bylaw, so that is actually now complete. We are exploring opportunities for collaboration related to environmental racism, and then we're continuing advocacy for specifically for 2S LGBTQ+ community and other equity-deserving seeking groups. The committee is going to send a letter to provincial officials regarding the current gender identity proposed policies, can explore where additional advocacy could be attained, and provide trusted resources related to the provincial proposed policies. Our plan is to come back to council in a few weeks once you have a chance to review some of that information that we're going to provide you, and also as we look into what next steps we'll be asking for at that time. So a little information about what those proposed policies are. So to be clear, this is what the Alberta government is currently proposing is the largest rollback of rights for queer people in Canada's history. And so specifically what that involves is banning gender-affirming care, making it inaccessible for parents who want to support their kids in their transition. It also includes making schools less safe by making it so that kids cannot come out safely. It also, there's a section about banning trans women from participating in recreational sport. And as well, having parents opt in every time a teacher plans to teach about gender identity, sexual orientation, or sexuality. So we do have a bunch of resources that we have included, but also just want to initially share some of the impacts of what these policies are going to do. It's going to limit schools and teachers to providing safe and inclusive spaces for students. If people are less aware of gender diverse people, it will lead to a decreased understanding and lack of respect for queer people, making schools less safe. The negative impacts on mental and physical health of trans and gender diverse people because of limited life affirming care and sports exclusion. We are expecting a potential increase in youth suicide rates, as well as potential increase in youth homelessness. Currently, 25 to 40% of homeless youth in Canada are 2S LGBTQ+, due to their homes not being safe. And I want to just, for those that don't know, I am one of those youths. I was homeless at 15 because I didn't have a safe home. So it is something that is in our community and it is happening everywhere. And there was also a study that showed that Alberta is the province with the highest rate of trans youth experiencing harassment at school at 90%. So we have shared a bunch of resources with you that are in your information packs. If we're hoping that you will take some time to, if you're not familiar with this issue, to review those resources. And then we're also available if you want to have a conversation with us about what the impacts of these are and what we're looking for next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, KG, for the presentation. Before we go to other questions, I have just a quick question going back to one of the things we brought up, the accessibility, people with disabilities. Do you guys work with any groups in town to identify those needs that are in the community?
So administration has been working with the Regional Inclusivity Committee separately from us, but I do personally also speak with some other members to make sure that their issues are being brought forward. We have had some of those conversations brought forward at Reside, and we are actively with the accessibility audits going and making sure that we are addressing those issues.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks, Mitchell. Councilor McGrath?
Through the chair, just wanted a couple of observations. I know I'm getting old, KJ, when you come present in council, when I think you used to hang around my daughters trying to get in trouble. So it's nice that you carry the flag and appreciate what you do. And also to you, sir, I know it's not your first time in council chambers. And I think I came to Alberta about 40 years ago in Fort McMurray. And I came from a Jesuit high school. So, you know, it was frowned upon, if you will. And then being a trustee for almost 20 years, I hear what you're saying because I remember people come to my house and all I asked them to do was call their parents and make sure they're safe. And if you gave them a few days, they were home with mom and dad. But, you know, what the work you're doing it for the people that can't talk about it. So you do save lives. And I think this municipality, in a lot of ways, are very accepting. And it only takes one bad person to burn a flag or something like that. But what I see is love, and I certainly can say from, you know, Fort Chip Fort Smith, all the way to Conklin, all the way over to Mariana Lakes. I don't think there's more of an accepting community. I mean, you're just like the rest of us. Everybody got 2 legs, 2 arms, 10 toes. Most of us, 10 fingers. It's all the same. And you've come a long ways. And I'm sure that I don't talk for everybody, but I know exactly what you're saying. And I just hope that you're around someday for you to lift somebody up, because I've seen it myself. And as long as those kids got a safe place to go, and they might change, but if they don't, they're still your kids, And to that little guy Mike, I know that maybe his parents parked him at my place for a couple of days, but you know what? At the end of the day, he's still alive. And if we all took that approach, you're no different than me. I mean, I was bigger than you one time, and doesn't shape us, size or color. I think it's if you hold the door open for somebody, and man, woman, doesn't matter. Love is love, and I think I just want to say again, thanks for what you do, because I know it takes a lot of nerve, a lot of passion to come up, and it's not your first time talking, and certainly support you 100% in public, in private, because you're just like us. You know what I mean? You're probably better than me. You know what I'm saying? So don't ever take it to the chin. You know what I mean? I think you're speaking for a lot of people, especially in this community, that are afraid to speak because they might get, as you say, thrown out of the house. So God bless you, buddy. Keep up the good work, and you too, KJ.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman Roth. Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and hi, KG and Mitchell. Nice to see you. Is Rayside aware that the Mayor's Advisory Council on Youth has taken on the role of working with the students in various schools so they can gain a better understanding of why it is important to have an anti-racism bylaw in our region?
This would be the first that I'm hearing of it, but that is incredible to know. And yeah, we would be interested in collaborating with them in the future. But that's a wonderful initiative.
Thank you, KG. I was at a meeting with them, and they had some very good ideas and on how to, to work with the youth in the schools. So, and my other question is, has any information been given to Rayside on when the anti-racism bylaw will be coming to council for approval?
So we just wrapped up the review process. I know that we're going to be discussing it in our meeting happening, I want to say next week. And then from there, we'll make the decision on when to present it to council.
Thank you. And thank you again for presenting to council.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. Councilor Dogar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, KG and Mitchell and everybody, the director also, whose leadership is very vibrant. And good to see you people working all over the community, KG. And always inspiring personality you are. I hope you will be one day here with us after your mom. And we keep on meeting, as you know, being the neighborhood. And thank you for your gifts on the mom day of your mom. And surely, whenever next time you have some group working, please invite me also. Okay? I respect all genders, want to stand with everyone. There's one term, one is 38 organizations are with RMWB signatories. So what do 38 groups work with you?
They've signed the workplace inclusion charter.
Yeah, so they're working with the E&I office and the inclusion coaches, so not directly with Reside, but that is an initiative that Reside helped with.
So you make awareness in the people?
Yeah, so the Workplace Inclusion Charter, it's a resource for businesses and organizations to help them become more inclusive. So it has a lot of resources of everything from having more inclusive signage to training resources, how to update their policies to make sure they're inclusive. So it's a really comprehensive program to help businesses in our region.
There's another term, puberty blockers. Puberty blockers. In that presentation, I read it. What is puberty blockers?
What are puberty blockers?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. What are puberty blockers? So those are medication that delay the onset of puberty to allow trans youth, or they're not just used by trans youth; they're also used by people who experience puberty earlier than usual or who have naturally hormonal imbalance. So it's a medication that helps people with their hormones.
Thank you very much. Keep on doing it, please.
Thanks, Councilor Dogar. Councilor Stroud, did you have another question?
It's not a question, it's a comment, Mayor Bowman. I'm not sure. I looked at the.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Stroud.
Thank you. I just wanted to let the Rayside group know that Councillor Weigel and I attended the accessibility awareness event exercise to see if the doors in the main foyer of City Hall were accessible. It was an eye-opener. One good result was that the door to the Planning and Development Office now has a button to open it, which makes it more welcoming to residents with mobility issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Stroud. I'm not seeing any other questions, so thanks, Mitchell. Thanks, KG. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have the flood mitigation program budget update. I'd like to invite Elliot White, Project Management Office, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Elliot White, and tonight I'll be presenting the flood I'll try start again. My name is Elliot White, and tonight I am representing the flood mitigation program team. We are here to present a program budget alignment update that will give insight on financial adjustments that have occurred within the program. I would like to note we are not here tonight requesting additional funds for the program. With the recent organizational changes within the RMWB, we have taken the opportunity to reevaluate the construction phasing and the finances within the program. While the financial adjustments proposed do not require a council amendment, nor are we modifying the schedule, this information is being presented as information in the spirit of transparency and to continue to demonstrate administration's commitment to fiscal responsibility. So first we'll review the financial changes to the program. So this slide presents the projects that have not been substantially completed or are in the planning stages. And I will now walk through this table and discuss each line and the changes that are occurring. The table presented here starts with projects on the left, listed in the left column. The next column, labeled 2024 and future year budget allocation, is the amount of funding available for each project that was previously established. The next column, called change, is the financial change to each project. I just want to make a note that the numbers in brackets are reductions. In the last column, labeled 2024 and future years budget reallocation, is a project budget after the change. So with this table, and for sort of ease of review here, I'm gonna work my way from the bottom up, and it'll be clear as we walk through. So I want to make sure we're clear. We're going to start with the annual total and work up. So when we start at the bottom of the table, the total sum remains the same. And just for clarity, the $137 million on either side is not the total program budget. That's just the summation of the two sides. So we're going to move up from there into Reach 8, and that's the Reach 8 bank stabilization. So for this one, we will see no change to the budget associated with this project, and we remain in the planning stages of this project. Moving upwards next, we move to underground enhancements. There's no change to this budget associated with this project. This project in particular has two contracts, the first of which has closed today. Based on the results received today on the first contract or first tender, there remains sufficient funds to fund both contracts. Moving up to the next line, which would be seasonal flood mitigation program. There's a $2,040,000 and $815,000 change here. It's a little adjustment. This adjustment was triggered when the seasonal program shifted from a capital cost to an operational cost. This adjustment accurately reports capital expenses associated with work from years past. Moving up from there, we have the Hanging Stone expansion area, and we don't see any change here. To Reach 9, we move up to Reach 9 here. We also see no change to Reach 9. And we remain in the planning phases for both Reach 9 and the Hanging Stone expansion area. Moving up from here is Reach 4. Then this is for Reach 4 enhancements. What we've done is we separated out Reach 4 enhancements, making it a standalone project. And we've assigned $550,000 for this particular project. Similarly, as we move up, Reach 3 enhancements, we've assigned $3.6 million to Reach 3 enhancements. The next line moving up, which is Reach 1 through 4 enhancements, this shows a reduction. This reduction is valued at $4,150,000. So this reduction is simply due to funds being allocated to the now separate Reach 3 and Reach 4 projects. So it's sort of a net zero change there in terms of finances, but we sort of just separated everything out. Reach 1 through 4 enhancements will now be renamed Reach 1 and 2 enhancements. So we kind of broke everything out. In the future, you will see Reach 1 and 2 enhancements, Reach 3 enhancements, and Reach 4 enhancements all separate in our financial reporting, scheduling, and work planning. And in a moment, we'll provide a quick status update on those three projects. So moving up from Reach 1 through 4 enhancements, we go to Taganova South. We remain in the planning stages for this project, and we keep the budget the same at $9.92 million. Moving up from Taganova South, and as discussed in our last update, Taganova North has a current budget of $18.5 million. This tender closed and the contract was awarded to a local contractor for approximately $11.3 million. At this time, we are reducing the budget by $1,070,000. With Taganova North construction just underway, we adjusted the budget only slightly at this time. As the project progresses and as the risks of unknowns diminish, the project budget will reduce accordingly and reallocated within the program. So we're going to move into stage 1, which is Reach 10-2. With respect to 10-2, we are now finalizing our tender package with the goal of heading to market in the fall, in advance of next year's construction. During the planning of 10-2, it was originally planned to raise all of Saline Creek Parkway to an elevation of 250.9. The intent was that the Saline Creek Parkway would be built in a way that would offer egress at an elevation matching the 1 in 200 flood elevation. It was determined during planning that the bridge Saline Creek Parkway sits below 250.9, and providing egress at that elevation of 250.9 at the bridge would either require seasonal mitigation, which is very taxing on operations and costly, or actually raising the bridge to the elevation of 250.9, which is also expensive. We then looked at Tollum Drive as an egress route that would be at 250.9 or above. With this route, it allows us to reduce the length of Sillen Creek Parkway that requires lifting. Using Tollum Drive as an egress route, there is an isolated road elevation adjustment that's required just around Ptarmigan Court. And what we would do is we would complete this work when the asphalt on Tollum Drive requires life cycling replacement, and it wouldn't be necessarily considered as part of the flood mitigation program. We also completed a comprehensive review on the underground storm network in waterways and found some synergies that reduce costs further. The plan is to redirect waterway storm flows and reduce the number of outfalls that require flood protection. This also allowed us to reduce the amount of storm pipe that needed to be replaced. Overall, these synergies developed by administration will see a project cost reduction by almost half. As we see on this slide for 10-2, the 10-2 project budget will reduce from $25,420,000 to $13 million, a total reduction of $12.42 million. For clarity, this budget is based on a probable cost estimate that has an accuracy of plus or minus 20%. Therefore, it won't be until after it's tendered, which is approximately the end of the year, until we have a true appreciation of the project impacts. Moving up from 10-2, we move to Reach 6. With respect to Reach 6, we have taken any remaining unallocated funding that evolved from these adjustments and moved them to the Reach 6 project budget. Understanding that further decisions are necessary for Reach 6, and based on the fact that detailed design has not commenced, placing this allocated funding within Reach 6 budget allows flexibility in council and design making decisions. Lastly, on the top, Reach 5. Reach 5 has a change to the budget of $3,975,820. This change accounts for changes to the project that have occurred during the execution. The following is a quick breakdown of these changes. During work occurring in the later stages of 2023, we've encountered historical contaminated soil. As required by law, the contaminated material must be shipped to an appropriate facility, such as the one in Janvier, to be processed. The cost associated with this activity is $1,278,627 and change. When the contract for the project was being executed post-tender, the project delivery team, as assurance, requested additional vendor information prior to proceeding to recommend the award. Our tender documents request bidders to hold their pricing for 90 days from submission. This delay prohibited the contract from being executed within a 90-day window. During the time period between tender close and contract signing, global markets associated with steel rose sharply. Based on our market research, there was a significant increase in global steel prices. This delay inadvertently introduced a change from the contractor once they received their pricing from their suppliers and from their subcontractor. The cost increase to the project is $37.11. A decision was made by the RMWB to extend the contract schedule. This decision was based on the fact that we've been experiencing soil consolidation or compression of the soil on our other developed reaches, By extending the contract into 2024, this allows for underlying subsurface soils to consolidate under the weight of our new berm. This then enables us to top up that berm in this summer coming and ensure that we maintain an elevation of 250.9 before we install surface treatments such as landscaping. The cost associated with extending this contract into 2024 results into a cost increase to the project of $1,095,625.20. And lastly, during the development of the tender, quantities of each material is determined. Reach 5 has a large volume of concrete that's placed between the double sheet pile wall. It was discovered once the project was well underway that the quantity of concrete listed in the tender was less than the volume that was required in the field. This cost associated with changing this quantity results in a cost increase to the project of $1,190,250. So going back to the table shown, we see a change of $3,975,820 to Reach 5's budget. It should be noted that the change order associated with historical contamination has already been approved and paid using project funds as well as unallocated funds within the program budget. So that's the presentation of the numbers. And before we close this entire presentation, we also now wish to demonstrate some of the construction work that will be occurring along Reach 3 and Reach 4 this year and next. So this is Reach 3 enhancements. This slide shows the work that will occur on Reach 3. Shown in green on the sketch, we present the limits of work that will raise the area to 250.9. In concert with this work, the work area presented in red on the left at the end of Main Street is a location of underground work that will occur to introduce valves to the storm system. This work will occur in 2024. Similarly, on the far right, for the Hardin Street Clearwater intersection, the area shown in red on the sketch is a location of underground valve work. This is the second contract that we referred to. This work is currently in design, and we are planning to complete this work in 2025. Because the underground work will impact such a large area of the intersection and will require reconstruction of surface infrastructure, we are taking the opportunity to raise the intersection to an elevation of 250.9. This work will be tendered this year, and the actual work, construction work, will occur next year in 2025. This is Reach 4 enhancements. This is the parking lot at the end of Father Mercredi. So this slide shows the work that will occur in 2024 in advance of completing Reach 4 enhancements. The red area is the work associated with the underground valve work. And to reduce the surface rework, we are also completing the waterfront park work at the same time, which includes an irrigation tie-in to the water system on Clearwater Drive and a change to the parking lot to accommodate traffic changes that will support the new waterfront park. This work is shown in blue. So on the left, you see the long section there. That's where the irrigation line will come in, and we're going to tighten up that little grassed area to allow traffic to flow better through that area. Lastly, as part of Reach 4 enhancements, we are rebuilding the parking lot shown in green to an elevation of 250.9. As this work will be completed this year in 2004, this allows us to utilize this area for waterfront access while avoiding the Hardin Street intersection in 2025. So when we rebuild that intersection on Hardin Street, the contractor will be able to use this area for the waterfront park. Furthermore, Reach 4 enhancement designs will be further developed this fall, and final construction work occurring and completed in 2025. Thank you for your time to allow us to present, and I look forward to fielding any questions you may have.
Thank you, Elliot. A few questions from Council. Councillor Ball.
Thank you, through the chair. To Elliot, are you sure you want to field some questions? I got one question about Reach 4, the enhancements. We talk about an irrigation system. My assumption, and just correct me if I'm wrong, my assumption is that you're only providing a service connection. You're not actually building an irrigation system.
Correct.
Right, under your contract, you're just giving them the access to tie into future needs if necessary, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. The other question is, Reach 6 is obviously a big unknown, and I think I appreciate that you're trying to keep the funds within the project and stay within the, what is it, $137 million budget. But we've increased that one from 54 to, is it 62?
Correct.
Right, so still a big unknown. Do we have any preliminary estimates of what Reach 6 is going to cost in the two different configurations that are proposed, either A, raising the road, or B, placing a berm?
To the chair, to Councillor Ball, we don't have numbers, particular numbers no, we just don't have numbers. They're in the process of being developed as we speak. So unfortunately, we were not able to answer that question at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gut feel, if we were to choose, I mean, I know this has to come to council at some point for a decision on what solution we're going to take, whether it's a berm or whether it's raising the road. If we were going to end up raising the road, if that's the final solution, do we see an increase in the overall budget of this project?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, the answer to your question is yes. If we were to raise the road, indications are such that we would see a budget required that is higher than $62 million.
And I assume significantly higher.
To the chair,
Okay.
I can't answer that
Fair
question.
enough.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Do you know when we're going to potentially get some of these numbers?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Ball, we're currently scheduled to go to council before the recess. We still have some process checks to go through, and but the plan is to go before recess.
Okay, will we be looking for an answer from council on what direction to take before recess, or is it just informational?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, I would suggest that the purpose of going to council at that time is to get direction from council.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Give us lots of time. That's a big topic. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Dogar.
Thank you, sir. Giving me the chance. Thank you, Mr. White. A very nice presentation and educative. I also owe a thanks to you. Last time you cleared my doubts in the end of the presentation in a very decent way. My question is, Hanging Stone expansion area, where is it? Which is quite far away from here.
Through the chair, to the question, Hanging Stone expansion area has to do with overland flooding. So that means sort of rain events that occur. Something that we saw, I believe it was last year in June. So the area in question that we're going to be closely looking at is effectively from the bridge on Highway 63 that passes over the Hanging Stone right next to Fire Hall 1 and sort of upstream along Grayling Terrace.
Fine. The other question is underground enhancement. What is that?
Through the chair to the question, underground enhancements, effectively the majority of the work is putting a valving system on the storm system. And what that does is it prevents any high water from getting into the storm. and getting up and under the berms and flooding the downtown.
How much is the total spent so far? Total amount spent so far?
Through the chair to the question, I can give you approximations.
Fine.
From a construction perspective, we just closed the tender today. So we've only done the design. So, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of a design so far. But in terms of the construction itself, we're showing that the $8.3 million to complete both contracts.
Thank you for the nice presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thank you for the presentation, Elliot. I just need to know, was Clearwater Drive built to use as a berm in flood mitigation?
Clearwater Drive. Through the chair to the question, can you repeat that question again?
So was Clearwater Drive built to use as a berm in the flood mitigation? That, my understanding, it was part of it.
Yeah. Through the chair to the question. So Clearwater Drive, if we break Clearwater Drive in sort of two distinct areas, Clearwater Drive from Morrison to Father Mercady, just a little bit past, is built to 250. 250 and change. It's not built to 250.9. It doesn't achieve what we're trying to achieve here. So that's the reason for the Reach 3 and 4 enhancements. As you move further along Clearwater Drive, when you get into Riddell and beyond, that would not be built to the current prescribed 250.9, and that's the Reach 6 that we refer to, and Reach 5 that wraps around the apartment complex. I think the elevation was 248.5 in that area.
So about Reach 1 and 2 then are part of the flood mitigation?
To the chair of the question, Reach 1 and 2 are definitely part of flood mitigation. However, that's sort of off the SNI.
Yes.
Reach 3 and 4 is a Clearwater Drive.
So is the cost for that included in this flood mitigation?
To the chair, the answer to that question is yes, it's included.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Boussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through the chair to Mr. Elliott, thanks for the presentation. Couple questions regarding Reach. Well, first of all, the one about Marine Park. Has there been any discussion with that organization on what their options are? Or has a decision been made? I know there's been a couple of different options thrown out to leave them there, move them down to the corner.
Through the chair, we conducted various external stakeholder engagements, and the Heritage Society were part of some of them, and so there was conversations associated with the idea of potentially moving the Marine Park, but we haven't necessarily discussed exact locations for where that would sit if it were to move.
Okay. The 250.9, I guess just jumping on Councillor Stroud's questions, was a decision by another council to go to that. It wasn't administration that moved the goalpost to 250.9, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So reaches 1 to, I guess, 1 through 4 were built at the old elevation or close to those. So the upgrades you speak about here are to bring it to 250.9.
Correct.
And I don't know what the total costs were, but it's a few $1 million, right? Would there be any savings in the long run, given that Mother Nature's going to win at the end of the day? So, but I don't think we've ever breached 249, have we? In recent flooding, back to 77, 90.
To the chair of the question, we have not in sort of recent memory.
Okay. And I call them bouncy castles, those little rubber things we put up in March. Is there any cost savings just to put them on reach 1 to 4 and try to save some money? Like, when does it kind of equal out? Where setting them up, taking them down every year?
Yep. Through the chair of the question, the triple dams that are used, they're a stopgap. They're a bridge between they're a temporary solution to a permanent solution. The issue at hand is the understanding is we're creating a system that is a reliable system that the insurance industry can say, yes, we built a flood mitigation to a certain elevation and we can guarantee that it's going to work. The problem with them, the seasonal mitigation is it introduces risk. And so then you get in a situation of balancing risk versus insurance and everything else. So the intent of flood mitigation was to follow provincial guidelines to bring it up to a certain level. As you alluded to, there was an uptick to go to 250.9, but ultimately the industry and the insurance industry, and more importantly, I believe our community is looking for a solution that is permanent and would stop a high water event if it comes. The thing about Reach 1 through to, I'd say 1 and 2, we've seen a significant amount of settlement. I think it's been about 10 years since we built that. And as you may see, the bags that we have there in the spring are quite high, because that's the amount of elevation we got to come to get to even 250. So it's actually quite a bit higher to get to 250.9. If we wanted to get to 250.9 with bags in that area, it would be very, very difficult because we need such a large footprint. Based on everything I understand of flood mitigation and speaking on behalf of administration, I don't think triple dams is a solution for the community.
Okay. But just to go back to the flood in 2020, I don't think any water breached between reaches 1 and 4, though. Did it? Like, I don't remember water. I mean, I was here for it.
Through the chair to the question, there was no water that breached through the clay berms associated with that area. So it came up to a certain elevation. There was situations with the underground system, but the berms themselves, they worked. But we have to respect Mother Nature as well and understand that based on the modeling and the information that we have, there is a real risk that what we have seen in the past, it may come back and it may be higher. So,
but isn't it safe to? I mean, we can get into this, I guess, when you bring back the presentation for Reach 6. But
sure.
I think it's safe to say that most of the water that breached the downtown came from underneath, not over. Like, I got water in a property, and it certainly didn't come from the river. It came up.
Through the chair to the question, I can't speak specifics because, I mean, and the town is sort of, it was kind of split because we had Clearwater Drive at the one end was higher than the other. What happens in a flood situation in a community such as ours, as the way it's built, you may get water come through the underground system, but you also get water come across sort of the overland. And what happens is that water enters all of the manholes that they first find, so catch basins, manholes, and it goes right into the sanitary system, and those sanitary systems are plumbed right into the houses. So a lot of people understood that the water was coming through the underground system, but in reality, a lot of the water was coming from the surface and into the system, from the top. That's not to say that it was storm systems, but that's where some of the water came from. So there was multiple multiple ways water came through.
Okay. And just last question, Elliot, just confirming and just clarification. You mentioned something about insurance and if we build to 250.9, you're not saying that if we build to 250.9 that everybody can get insurance downtown, right?
Through the chair, I hate being deflecting. I'm not an insurance expert.
Okay, because I don't,
And
because
yeah,
I
so-
can't get insurance and I'm at 260 meters. So I think even building, and it's too bad Bryce isn't here because he knows insurance, but I think even if we go to 250.9 isn't going to guarantee everybody will be able to get flood insurance in the lower town site. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but so I just clarification. I didn't want to assume that's what you meant by if we go to the new 250.9 that everybody's going to be insured now going forward.
Through the chair to the statement, I certainly appreciate it because it clarified something that I said that probably needed that clarification. So, but your statement is correct. Yeah. What I'm saying, what I said was alluded to the idea that we're providing a system that the insurance industry or an industry that works on risk can rely on, and there's somebody that system can be checked, can be tested, can be quality assured. So I can't make decisions obviously for the industry, but it's something that having a permanent flood mitigation system is extremely important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Boussier. Councilor McGrath?
It's always nice to hear the update on the berm. We're going back to the old reaches, and I see the floodgates they're not longer the picture. I guess my question is, what is the total spend to date on the whole project, from Reach 1 to Reach 4 to the embutment and waterways to the bridge embutment, I call them, across the river? What would be your total spend to date? And furthermore, Clearwater Drive was built with I would say a provincial flood line, and then it was compounded by a federal 100 or 201 year flood, and that's where the 3 something came from. But it didn't come with an envelope, I don't think. An envelope for funding. What would be our total cost today? Because we originally passed the budget, it was about 50 million.
Through the chair to the question associated with our spend, I don't have our spend to date. I have the presentation that was brought to council, I believe in April, that has the year end, December 31st.
It was April that I asked your CFO to come with the compounded number that we spent to date, and not inclusive of the 5 or 6 million we're spending every year with the balloons, no matter if we have rain or snow or fog. That's a whole different issue. And then the second thing that was promised to me would be the line item of federal funds to navigate our 0.9, the 200-year flood, and then our provincial funds to originally build up Clearwater Drive to that, because I heard an old friend of mine say that it was cheaper maybe to take the risk than it was to build a dike. You know what? 15 years later, he might probably not bad, because I think if I got half a clue, I think in 11 years, we got to be close to 300 million. And I know that a lot of that, some of that cash gets buried, with the road profile. But to go back and now we do some rework or whatever you want to call it. And this is not you, sir. I'm just trying to say, because government Alberta think we're rich. But between the dike downtown and rural water and sewer, we're over $1 billion. And we're not done yet. And I admire your honesty this evening, because the price is only going to go up from here. Through the chair, if I may, an observation was the other day, the dike that you're going to move that was built about 5 years ago with some gumbo and KCW, That's the berm that's out in front of the shipyard. Well, that's about 200 meters away from the escarpment of the river. So that gives her lots of flow. But I'd really like to know, because it seems like it's some hard to get a number here. Because I heard somebody say that the province gave us a lot of money. Well, I guess I'll leave it with this. And this is not to pound on anybody. We're going to a convention next week. 2/3 of our income has been cut. And 2/3 of the responsibilities we took on since. So they're going to clash. And it's our job here to make sure it clashes. And we all have an equal stake in making it float, typically speaking. And we're still talking about reaches. Now, reaches are going to cost, just one reach is going to cost 15, 20 million. And we're doing sheep hauling one side. I don't know what the cost of it is, but I know it was $212 a meter for reach 1 and 2. But I guess through the chair, if we can have, at some point in our life, and maybe before we break the summer, the total cost that we've done Clearwater Drive and the forecast to spend to the end. Because I think it's going to be an education for all of us, even some of the people that just started. And then I think the other cell needs to have is our yearly spend that's right out the window. We don't get no money for preparing for the flood that we're not going to have. But I think they're critical numbers that we can make decisions on. We can't go ask the province, because what I hear is we're getting lots of money. I don't think we're at 5% maybe. If we can have that through the chair, if we can have it at some point, even before we go, because we only get to connect with these guys once a year, and especially with the feds.
So for clarity, Councilor Rath, you want to get those numbers before June the 6th, correct?
Yeah, and I think they have them just in Treasury, like in the SAP program. Anybody's attached to that program, there's a couple of clicks to the button, done. They'll tell you how much you got left in the PO. That's how good a system it is. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Rath. Councilor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is around Reach 6. You had said you don't have a clear projection of the cost at the moment, and that triggered some thoughts about the lessons learned from other reaches that we've done, delays between RFP and POs. Are we closing those gaps? Are we doing better with that?
Through the chair to the question, I'll answer it as honest as I can. I've been involved with the municipality in some capacity for the last 9 years, and flood mitigation over the course of the last, and I've been involved in the flood mitigation essentially for 4 years now since I've worked with the RMWB. And I would say in the past 3 years, a lot of rigor has gone into the program in terms of reporting, in terms of capturing financial costs, ensuring that we're allocating our funding correctly. I think that the rigor that we put into this program currently, as it sits today, is adequate, and we'll always strive to do better. But I think, for example, the presentation I'm presenting from our team demonstrates that, and our last presentation demonstrates that we're able to deliver the program with some fiscal responsibility and quality assurance that I can stand behind anyway, and I think most of the staff, or all of the staff that work on the program, can as well.
Thank you, because of course the reason why I brought that up is the cost, because there will always be change orders, especially when we leave the gap so long, and so that's efficiencies that could be introduced. Mm-hmm. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Banjoko. And Councilor McGrath, you have another question?
No, I just wanted some clarity, sir. I think you're a fine man, you're a fine staff. Just that this whole thing started over a decade ago before you came here. I think me and Lance were hauling people out of Rydell Street on our first flood in '97. So certainly nothing against your staff. It's just that the feds haven't given us a buck, and we're supposed to be doing our jobs, getting you some money, because they're the guys that last lifted up our dike. We had to, according to the feds. And, you know, people might think sometimes I'm a little bit wonky, but there's lots of stuff said here that kind of sticks with me, resonates. You know, like KCW is the only clay we have here. Gumbo. When I hear people talking about dirt, we've all been in it. Dennis has been over there. He's been over around the dirt for 50 years. It changes, but the one thing that has changed, we got to disconnect from Ottawa and the province, and that's what we need to do our jobs, the tools to get you the funds, to make sure our residents have a place to call home and not paying what we used to pay 12 or 13 grand a year in taxes. And so it's not a slight to your people, sir. I think you're doing a fine job with what you're given.
Thank you,
But it's up
Councilor
to us.
McGrath.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Boussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just one last question, Elliot. And I know you guys are going to be bringing the presentation. Just going back to what Councillor Ball had said, sounds like there's a couple options, leave the berm or raise the road for Reach 6. This may be a stupid question, but can you just raise one lane of the road instead of both? Like, I don't know if that would be the north lane or the south lane, and would that save any money, or is that an option that's going to come forward?
Through the chair to the question. I just want to clarify your question because you made a comment about leaving the berm. The berm that's there today, that won't be.
Yeah, I know, not that berm, but
just want to
build
clarify.
a berm or leave a berm, so where you can't see the clear water. But if one of the options is, which I think it is raise the road and use that as flood mitigation, is it possible to have one lane high and one lane leave? Would that save any money, or is that just an engineering nightmare?
An engineering nightmare. Yeah, it has to do with the footprint. When you raise, you're going to be raising that road 3 meters, 10 feet. So you can imagine the footprint even just one lane would take up.
Well, the dirt that's there now, or what's pretending to be the berm, is that at 250.9? I heard it is. I heard it is. What's it at?
Chair, I believe it's at 250 even. So we still got to come up a little more.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to clarify, so if you're coming up, if you got to build a berm of any, well, 10 feet, 3 meters, your slopes have to be safe enough so someone could walk on it, or even you have to mow it. So you have a 3-to-1 slope. So your footprint is going to be quite large. Doing the math, you're talking 60 feet. So it's a large footprint. We did look at all kinds of options. Raising one, doing the other, moving this, moving that, and we narrowed it down to the two. I suppose the two options that give us reach as a goal, and based on feedback we received over I guess a course of years, ensuring that we maintain the integrity of the program, but receive that feedback and review those options. And the two that came out were the berm off to the side and raising the road. I hope that I answered your question. I
think so. I was just trying to think outside the box. So I know we're going to get debate, like Ken says, about which option to take. I don't know if I can disclose the option I want, but can I say it, Mayor? I think the road one is the one I like, where you can actually see the clear water instead of driving down now and you see dirt and you have no idea what's going on behind the dirt. Could be safety, could be stuff happening and I mean, the RCMP can't even see when they drive down there, so they don't know what's going on behind the berm. So my idea was you just build, obviously you'd have to do something with Marine Park or whatever, but you do a north lane, probably the one that goes north. You build that, I don't know, 40 feet, 50 feet from the current road, and you build that up. and you leave the other one as it is, fix it the way it is. And to me, there'd be some cost savings because you're only building one lane up then instead of 2 lanes. And that's where I was going with this.
Okay, I see. Through the chair, the question, if the road didn't have perpendicular roads coming off, so you have King, Queen, just trying to remember my streets
Father
here.
Merck,
Well, Father Merck is already kind of done, but
Riddell.
anyway, Alberta Drive, King, Queen. When you have those roads tie in to what you refer to, it's very difficult to transition from your high berm down to your low berm cross.
You'd only be tying into the existing one. Maybe we can just, I mean, the light, we'll debate
discuss
this
that
back.
before we end on this.
Yeah, the next one. The one that's there, they tie into that one. The flood mitigation would be a brand-new road that's 250.9, closer to the Clearwater.
Okay.
You're not doing anything with the existing. So Riddell Street is still coming in the same place. Hospital Street, Queen Street. So you'd have to access them on, I guess, the southbound. But anyways, we can discuss that later.
To
Next
close, we looked at something very, very similar, a hybrid a little bit, and it was deemed not feasible. So we can approach that at a different time or a different venue. Like
Who deemed it not fit? A bunch of engineers? I'm just kidding. It's only a joke.
okay.
Thanks, Councilor Boucher. And Councilor McGrath, you have another question?
But just to help the house out, we're all familiar with Gee's bypass. That's what it'd exactly be like. You know, if you come across the bridge, so you ride the high, and you look down by Earl's, you got the low. So you basically, that's what you end up with. You know what I mean? You need about 60 meters of base, and as you built up your slopes, you'd end up with Gee's bypass, just by Earl's. Same. That'd be kind of look for the public. And, you know, I was just trying to help that lands.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor McGrath. And I don't see any more questions, so thank you, Elliot.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we go to the next presentation, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have bylaw number 24/009, Natural Resource Extraction Support Project Tax Incentive Bylaw, which is being presented second and third readings tonight. I'd like to invite Kevin Avindi, Corporate Services, and Patrick White, Legal Services, to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Patrick White from Legal Services. With me is Kivan Navadi from Corporate Services. We are here tonight to with the bylaw for your consideration. This evening, I'm going to explain why we are here about this bylaw, this one specifically, what it means, how other municipalities handle similar bylaws, how we propose that this municipality does it, and then going to give a couple of examples so you can see how this bylaw would be in action. First of all, it does connect quite nicely with this council's strategic plan. It feeds into its fiscal management ideas, and it adds to our tax rolls. Even though this is an exemption by law, this is an exemption of only potential tax revenue that does not currently exist. So this is not a actualized loss as of yet. This bylaw also diversifies our economic base. It is supporting of oil and gas, but other natural resources such as lumber, which will allow us to perhaps weather the global oil price up and down a little better. The goal of this bylaw is to attract new development to the municipality and to create new jobs in new industries to hopefully keep our young people here in this community and keep them from moving away for other jobs. And overall, to increase our population, and increasing our population increases our tax revenue basis even further. So now for what this bylaw will need, it applies to non-residential and machinery and equipment taxes only. Only the portion of municipal taxes does not affect that portion of your taxes that goes towards school boards. The MGA says that we can only offer this exemption for 15 years at a time. However, we recommend that we stick to 10 years for larger projects and less for smaller projects. And the reason for this is that the clock starts as soon as that project has been approved. If it's a long period of time, so if they give them the 15 years, they could waste up a large portion of that 15-year getting ready to building, and we don't actually get as much of the revenue as we would like. So the shorter the time period increases the likelihood that shovels will be in the ground as soon as possible to get the project up and running and to start having the jobs available. One of the portions of the bylaw that we are going to try and emphasize is that this increases our local workforce. We propose that the bylaw limit the location of any new project to a 60-minute commuter zone of the urban service area. We're also going to offer an additional exemption over and above the base for any company that offers an employer-assisted housing benefit program. That could be anything from a rent subsidy to mortgage assistance or a home equity program. It specifically excludes work camps. That is not a project that is available to get this tax incentive. And we're also going to require that any project have at least 15 full-time equivalent skilled jobs. And by skilled job, we mean someone that has a trade certificate like Red Seal, or perhaps a degree or diploma or something else recognized certificate. This is our proposed tax incentive bylaw, or tax incentive zone, excuse me. It represents an approximate 1 hour commute radius from the urban service area. The way that the bylaw is drafted, that this tax incentive zone could be modified in any further amendments without significant change. If you wanted to include the urban service area or even expand it as far as like Fort Fitzgerald if we wanted, that allows that possibility. Right now, it is limited to a 1 hour radius. Now, this means 1 hour south of Fort McMurray is also 1 hour north of some of our southern hamlets, so we're not forgetting the southern hamlets. They are there. We don't go as far as the furthest southern reaches because those areas do not have the infrastructure to really handle a very large project. They don't actually have the housing stock right now, so the workforce would have nowhere to live, which would encourage a fly-in, fly-out workforce, which we are actively attempting to discourage with this bylaw. But it's not to say that further councils cannot modify this at a later date. So now I'm going to talk about how some other municipalities have addressed this. This is a fairly new part of the MGA. It only came in late 2019. So not all municipalities have developed bylaws that are around this. However, two examples we've looked at are Strathcona County, which you may know as east of Edmonton and Fort Saskatchewan, and Sturgeon County, which is north of Edmonton, Morinville, and St. Albert. So both of them limit their work to the energy value chain industry only. Strathcona offers a 1% exemption. Sturgeon's a little more liberal at that 1.5%. Sturgeon also allows an additional benefit if they have an environmental, social, or governance policy. Strathcona only gives a 25% exemption. Sturgeon is 80%, and both used for 10 years. There are other municipalities that have significantly smaller ones. Wetaskiwin is another one that they do for $2 million at 3 years, and Vulcan is even smaller at $1 million. But we will get into is why we don't recommend something that small. So our draft bylaw says that it should be for the natural resource extraction support industry. And I understand that's quite the mouthful, but we're trying to limit it to industries that support oil and gas, but also things like lumber, but not things like restaurants, hotels, and things of that nature. This could be, of course, if council wanted to have an additional tax incentive bylaw, they can create a whole new one and use this as a template, assuming that this works out as planned. It's for new construction or expansion projects, and a minimum of eligible capital costs, $25 million. 250 employees during construction, or 15 in operation. The tax exemption would be 1% of the eligible capital costs, with an additional 1.5% if there is a housing benefit, so a total of 2.5%, an 80% exemption, and 10 years if it's a $50 million project or more, but only 5 years if the project is $25 million, or until the maximum is reached, maximum being that 1% or that 2.5%. So now I'm going to show just a couple of examples of what this will look like if it goes into place. This is a wood pellet plant. It's an environmentally friendly product. So this is made from compressed sawdust. It's a large project, 85 million, but the assessed value would only be about 17 million. The tax exemption is 136,000 a year, but municipality would still wind up collecting 34,000 over a period of time, and would reach that maximum in 6 years. Slightly smaller project here is a parts manufacturing facility, making parts used up in the sites or at the wood pellet plant, for example. This one is a $10 million assessed value, $80,000 a year for exemption, $20,000 collected. And even a slightly smaller project, a research and development hub, $25 million project. It's still $40,000 a year exemption, and we would still collect 10 years. And because this is a smaller project, it would only run for 5 years, and then the window would be over. So I want to reiterate that this is an exemption of potential tax revenue. These companies do not exist in our municipality right now. The incentive is to bring them here so that we can give them this exemption, and then we would, after that period of time, then we would collect the full amount. I know that it has been suggested that we have a smaller threshold. We are recommending 25 million. Some people have, or some municipalities have suggested lower. The problem with the lower threshold is it increases the likelihood that a small company will come in and compete with our existing companies, and there will be actually not a gain for the municipality and possibly even a net loss because that original existing company may be run out of business. Another reason not to lower the threshold too far is if it's a low threshold, they don't have a lot of investment in the community. They could set up shop, take the exemption, and then pack up and leave at the end of it. So by increasing the threshold, they're more likely to put their roots down, have their employees put their roots down, and stick around in the community in the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Quick question before I go to my colleagues. Why the 60-minute computer zone? Where did that kind of arrive from?
It's simply just a reasonable distance to expect someone to drive on a day in and day out basis. It's currently base plans about 45 minutes depending on traffic, and we don't really want people driving any further than that. And because it may encourage work camp accommodations.
Yeah, that's my thought with the 60 minutes, that might be in that zone. Thank you. Councilor McGrath, your question?
Thank you, through the chair. So do you have any low-hanging fruit when you name these companies, the companies that don't exist? Do you, like, you know, any opportunities, I guess, that, you know, that you can speak of? Because obviously you want to offer a tax incentive, because the only plants that we can't get to in that 60-minute radius, we can go to Fort Hills in 55 minutes. You can go to ConocoPhillips in 45 minutes. The only reason why there's a camp at Fort Hills is because the municipality intervened and said they wanted a camp. At that time, we had no infrastructure. We didn't have 3 bridges. You know, we ran a shift. You know, myself personally had 3 crews. We never had a shift change for 5 years. People worked, moms and dads worked 15-hour nights. You know what I mean? But now the flow is here. So in your incentive, you know, through the chair, would it be proper to ask, go back and renegotiate? We have people that live in Gregoire and they go to camp, leave their families and go to Fort Hills. My question is, we're always chasing what's not here, but how would we build the force that we have? The roads are here. The infrastructure is done. You know, Carter and Newell, they're gone. Our buddies are gone. Mr. K will clean us out. But I can tell you that with the infrastructure we have in place, we should have an incentive for the godfathers. That not everybody wants to stay in camp, but everybody wants to be proud moms and dads and provide for their family and get them to the sports. But I think we have this garden in front of us.
We can get that, Councillor, when we get debating and comments, but if you want to go a question.
I'm just wondering, a question through the chair to admin. I like the presentation, I like the incentive, but I don't see us incentivizing what we can that's here in place. Like, would there be an incentive to go to, let's say, Fort Hills? We can get there. We can get people there. We couldn't when it was built. That's all I ask. It's not a debate. It's just that this is the opportunity.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath.
To Councilor McGrath through the chair, I believe what you're suggesting is incentivizing the currently existing companies?
The companies that never had the opportunity to house people here in our region because of the infrastructure that we never had, because at that time governments didn't recognize the GBT of this community until after the fire. So yes, times are different. So my ask is, why not? You know, and then the other thing is, we have a lot of sites that are within that 60 minutes. There's times from Timberlea to Keano College can take you 45.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Dogar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the nice presentation, Mr. White. Probably I'm hearing you for the first time. Good one. My question is, I think these taxes would be less than what is with the old companies which are already operating. Am I right?
To the Chair, to Councillor Dugar, you mentioned the taxes will be lower than the other companies that
You
we
know,
have?
we are planning taxes for the new organizations which we want to attract to invest here.
To the Chair, to
So it
Councillor
should be
Dugar.
certainly less than. Are you keeping some compatibility with that old taxes?
To the Chair, to Councillor Dugar, the tax rate will be the same. The only things we are doing, we are providing 80% of the municipal taxes exempt, and we're gonna collect 20% of that tax till they meet all exemptions. After that, these companies will be fully taxable.
Would the old companies organization would not be expecting the same concession?
This is only for the new businesses, and we just want to attract the new businesses.
This is for how much period?
To Chair, to
How
Councillor.
much period? This is for 1 year, 2 year?
Right now, the deadline for the bylaw, I believe, is until March 2025. December? Is December to 24 or 5? December to 25. And if after that's required, we can extend, the council can extend the bylaw.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering why we would want to exempt those who are not in the natural resource extraction support. Because I think one of our strategies is to continue to diversify the economy and not continue to rely only on oil sands. So I'm wondering why we wouldn't think of manufacturing, fabrication, and other sectors to grow what we have in this region.
Through the Chair to Council Banjoko, this bylaw does actually provide for some manufacturers. If they make parts that can be used up at site and also could be sold on the global market, they would qualify. And one of the reasons why we have incentivized the Natural Resource Extraction Support Project is because companies like to settle together, birds flock together. They have all the infrastructure, they have the other companies that they can do work with. And so we would like to create a hub of sorts up here.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Councillor Banjoko. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for the presentation. So I just need some clarity. Is this tax incentive for businesses based in the municipality?
Through the Chair to Councilor Stroud, yes, this is for companies that are based in the municipality. Right now, the zone excludes the urban service area, but it encompasses the larger area outside of it.
Okay, and so I'm just trying to figure this out. For example, on a $50 million project, what would be the dollar amount for the tax incentive per year, and what would be the net gain for the region?
To the Chair, to Councillor Stroud, for the $50 million eligible capital cost, if they provide housing, they will have 1.5% tax exemption, which will be $750,000. If they don't provide housing accommodity, it will be 1% tax exemption, which is $500,000. Typically, because machinery equipment depreciate very fast, the assessment is usually around 20% of that eligible cost, which will give us $10 million in assessed value. If we assume the tax rate is 1% for municipal taxes, we will have about $100,000 per year for the taxes. 80% of that $100,000 will be exempt, which is $80,000 per year. Then we will have $20,000 collected until the full exemptions is paid, probably within 6 years to 9 years, and after that it will be fully taxable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Kevin, I'm just trying to figure out what would be the net gain for the region. You might have answered that. And, for this tax incentive, we're giving them a tax break. Okay, but what is the net gain for the region? Like, how much taxes are we going to make?
To the chair, to Councillor Stirrat, so assuming 20,000 per year for next 9 years, that will be $180,000 net. However, there are other not monetary benefits we're gonna get. That's increase in populations, be more compatible with other municipalities, and increasing the business and synergy in our region.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thanks again. You had mentioned that this is not going to in any way encourage fly-in, fly-out, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, that is our intent, that we do not encourage fly-in, fly-out employees.
Okay, is it possible in any way to put that clause in, or to put that as part of communication, something like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, that would not be possible, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko. Councillor Grandison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair, just some clarity on the question that Councillor Stroud asked when she said how much everything, whatever taxation we get would be new money, right? So the whole idea about this incentive is to bring businesses that otherwise would not be encouraged to build here and build somewhere else. So any money we make is new money. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grandison. Do you have any questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Do we have any delegates to this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have no registered delegates for this item.
Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Grandison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that bylaw number 24/009 being the Natural Extraction Support Project Tax Incentive Bylaw, my goodness, long, be read for a second time.
Thank you. Thank you for the second, Councillor Banjoko. Now, are there any other questions, comments, or debate points from council this time? I'll call for a vote on the second reading, sorry. Councillor Cardinal, did you vote online or?
I didn't vote against.
Okay, thank you. So that's carried with one against. Can I have someone make the motion for the third reading? Councillor McGrath?
I just have a question. It's okay to ask a question?
This is the reading.
Oh, no. Okay, sure. I move that bylaw number 24/009 be read a third and final time.
Thank you. Thank you for the second, Councillor Weigel. Councillor McGrath, yeah, and now time for questions and comments. So Councillor McGrath, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, so after this vote, and if it's in favor, would this be then siloed to some external parties to help you out with that question, like, ECDev, industry?
Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, at this point, we will not be utilizing economic development. It will be handled completely internally through the administration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Do we have any other questions, comments, or debate points from council? Councillor Boussier?
Just to follow up from Councillor McGrath, just curious through the chair, why we wouldn't take advantage of economic development to try to create some spin-off?
Through Through the chair to Councilor Banjoko, or sorry,
That's okay.
Boussier. We would engage economic development if our CAO asked us to do. But
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions, comments, debate points from council? I'm not seeing, but I do agree with Councilor Boussier and Councilor McGrath. That probably will be favorable with the connected industry as well as while they move around the country. I'll call for a vote.
Cardinal against.
And that's carried 1 against. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have, well, Kevin and Patrick's. There we are. Next, we have the report on designated industrial property complaint authorization. I'd like to invite Kevin Navindi, Corporate Services, and Patrick White, Legal Services, to remain seated, please. And you can start whenever you're ready, Patrick.
okay, I'm going to skip the introduction because I think I know who you are. So the designated industrial properties have an assessment done by the provincial assessor. And as a municipality, we are allowed to file a complaint under Section 508 of the MGA. The municipality has already filed complaints because we had a deadline of May 6th, and we would not be able to put together a package and bring it before council before that deadline. So we have proactively filed. We are asking council's authorization to do so, although we have 42 accounts listed in today's council report. Literally this morning, we have discovered that only 8 properties have filed their own complaints. So we will be withdrawing the remainder and we will be getting a refund. So don't worry about that. And so we are simply asking for council's authorization to act as a complainant and not as an intervener. It gives us a better capacity to argue our case before the tribunal.
Thank you, Patrick. Just for clarity, what is the amount of tax dollars we're talking about that we could be having to pay without this process in place for us to file a complaint against it?
To the chair, to Mayor Bowman, the risk is about $25 million, and our goal is to reduce this risk.
Thank you. Councilor McGrath, question?
Through the chair, so the max is 25. Would that be? So you're going to knock off about, you say about 48. I know there's about 57 pipeline carriers in a region. So out of those 8 complaints that you're going to, certainly I don't think anybody here would stop you from trying to get what was right. But how many are actually just putting fluid through the line versus actually putting oil in the line?
To chair, to Councilor McGrath, actually the $25 million is those 8 accounts. So we were pretty sure these will be appealing, and that's how we arranged our appeals. But the $25 million is only for 2024. Our risk is if there is a decision from the LPRT that is not in our favor, that may impact our future assessment. That's the main reason that we want to be more active, and that's why we want to go to LPRT.
Because you can go from 25 million to 100 million pretty quick.
It's possible. It depends on
in the big
decision.
Money market. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Boussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Through the chair. In the report, it said there was 42 at 25 million, but we're down to 8, you said?
To chair, to Councilor Boussier, those the 8 main accounts. That's what we are going to follow. Yes.
And it's still at 25 million?
Still on $25 million.
Okay, and then outside of the appeal cost of $650, what typically is our cost to, like obviously we hire lawyers, or do we do this internally?
Typically, through chair to Councilor Boussier, typically we will be hiring possible to other experts, depends on the cases. We will try our best to handle it internally and provide evidence as best we can. But it depends on how complicated the cases are going.
So average, how many hours, what's the cost to, outside of the 650, our cost, whether we're paying external or paying internal to fight these appeals? I'm sure we've been doing it forever, so.
To Chair, to Councillor Bossier, like our strategy, basically my strategy is first be on table and try to resolve issues even without going to LPRT to save money for all parties, province, complaint and municipality. But all depends of the next steps. I really don't know how many hours it's gonna take. I believe last year it was about 1 month that the hearings take, or even a couple extra sessions. So it's I can answer how many hours it's gonna take, but our goal is to handle it internally mostly, unless it gets very complicated.
Okay, so I mean, to the chair, they can be labor intensive though, right? These
To Chair,
appeals?
to Councillor Bossier, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bossier. Councillor Weigel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. We've appealed before, right? Like we've gone through this process before?
Through the chair to Council Weigel, previously we acted as an intervener, and that severely limits our ability to adduce evidence to cross-examine witnesses, and this is why this time around we're asking to be a full complainant.
Awesome. And what do we think the success rate of this is?
To Chair, to Councillor Weigel, based on the decision that we received about 2 months ago, the success rate is low, but we will do our best. So even if $25 million, we reduce it to $24 million, it's $1 million saving we are making.
Right. And we're going this direction because of the intervener last time, and it was massively unsuccessful in going that direction, as we basically got told what to do and where to go.
To Chair, to Councillor Weigel, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Weigel. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. So I'm making an assumption that part of this process is going to be educational. Educational for the municipality, educational for the province, educational for all parties concerned. So if I understand these correctly, if we don't do stuff like this, we get told what the outcome is instead of being participants within the outcome. The province doesn't necessarily see everything through our eyes, and if we're not there to educate them, they will continue to only see things through their eyes. Is that a correct assumption?
Through the chair to Councillor Grandison, yes, sir, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so it's not always just about the money today. It's about the rules that are going to be applied going forward and our ability for taxation moving forward as well, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Given the low expectation of success, and one of my colleagues talked about the length of time this could take, is it possible to use in-house resources to manage this? No? I would like
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Banjoko. It would be nice to use internal resources, and certainly we're capable of them. In my other life, I did nothing but tax hearings, but the trouble with it is that it takes a lawyer out of the office. Could be 1 week, could be 2 weeks, could be much longer. The Fort Hills hearing, I think, was what, 12 weeks long? So, and we can't afford it in terms of the workload. We keep up with the day-to-day stuff.
okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko. Any other questions from council? Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no delegates for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the Council for the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo finds the interest of the public in the municipality is sufficiently concerned and hereby authorizes the municipality to become a complainant in the Land and Property Rights Tribunal hearings outlined in the attached schedule in accordance with Section 508 of the Municipal Government Act.
Thank you, Councilor Grandison, and thank you for the second, Councilor Ball. Do we have any other debate points, questions, or comments from council? Councilor Boussier?
Yeah, just, I guess, just given what the Director of Legal said, would it be possible to get a breakdown if we do appeal what it costs the municipality? Because I think pulling an internal lawyer for a month or 2 months or 3 months is a lot cheaper than hiring an external lawyer at probably $600-800 an hour to fight an appeal. So I guess I'm more curious what the costs are if it takes 12 weeks or something, because I'm sure lawyers don't come cheap when it's external.
Yep. So can we have that for that? Get that information for council?
Yes, I can get that information at council. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Councilor Boussier.
Thank you.
Councilor, any other comments, debate points, or anything? Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and I just want to thank them for bringing this forward. I agree that we need to be a complainant rather than an intervener so the RMWB can actively participate in the hearings. There are millions of dollars in tax assessments that we have a much stronger chance of not risking the loss of municipal taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. I mean, just to be, for clarification, although we're doing this, we're still going to be pursuing the appeals on the decisions that came back previously.
Through the chair, yes, we are still pursuing those appeals.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll call for a vote. Councilor Cardinal, how do you vote?
I'm against. Thank you.
And that's carried 9 in favor. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have the report on the 2004 capital amendments. I'd like to invite Laura Farquharson, Corporate Services and Elliot White Project Management Office to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For the record, my name is Lori Farquharson, Chief Financial Officer, and here with me this evening is Elliot White, from the Project Management Office. Administration has identified 2 capital projects to be submitted for capital budget amendment consideration. Council is the approving authority for capital budgets, subject to the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Policy FIN 160. The capital budget amendments will result in an increase of $4,344,000 to the 2024 and prior capital budget, as outlined in the cash flow summary on attachment 2. The 2 capital project amendments are as follows. The Fort McKay Range Road 1109 improvements. This project is for the construction of a local road from the Fort McKay Main Road to the end of the community center on the Range Road 1109. The scope includes underground infrastructure such as water, storm, and sanitary lines. The second one is the Fort McKay Road South Water Line. This project is for the construction phase for the infrastructure improvements of the Fort McKay Road right-of-way as requested by Fort McKay Métis. The scope of work includes sidewalks, trails, placemaking, signs, street lights, underground utilities, and miscellaneous items that are required for the infrastructure improvement. A conditional tender call, which closed on May 9th, 2024, was issued for both of these projects to realize synergies during the construction phase. These amendments are to address the funding shortfalls of $1,881,000 for the Fort McKay Range Road 1109 improvements and $2,463,000 for the Fort McKay Road South Waterline project. To proceed with the contract award to the lowest compliant bidder. Administration is recommending that the 2024 capital budget amendments, as summarized on Attachment 1, 2024 capital budget amendments, project amendments, net impact, dated May 28, 2024, be approved, and that the revised cash flow of capital projects as summarized on Attachment 2, 2024 capital budget amendments, project amendments, cash flow summary, dated May 28, 2024, also be approved. This concludes our presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilor McGrath, question?
Yeah, thank you, to the chair. I guess the question would be the water line in Fort McKay, the addition, the community center would have attached on to the already infrastructure that was in place? Would that carry on over towards the fire hall?
Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, the current plan is to connect the community center to the infrastructure that will be going in place on Range Road 1109. It wouldn't connect to the existing.
But that wasn't in the original scope. That this is one of the amendments on the south end around the facility.
Can you explain that question again?
Your two amendments. Your
Yep.
two amendments. Your two cash amendments. Your two cash calls for the upgrades to the project itself. Will there be any capacity added to the lift station in Fort McKay?
Okay. Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, the development that you're referring to, the community center, fire hall, and other planned infrastructure there, draw the community in from the existing residents. So you're essentially not increasing sanitary flows. You're keeping them sort of net zero. So you're removing one person from a home and bringing them down to the community center to gather.
What I'm saying right now, as of this evening, as of yesterday, and every day before, there's a velocity problem with water. We went for a couple of weeks. So my question would be, we put the lines in the ground. Are we going to build any more lift stations to keep the flow? Okay. To generate some capacity? Because I happened to spend a day with Lance at the request of Fort McKay, and we drove around the community. And I think we done the the lagoon with DCL in 2000. So it seems like there's a lot of work to be done there. So I'm just wondering, we're putting the lines in the ground, but what feeds those lines is all infrastructure. So are we doing it something now that we're going to have to add to next year? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilor McGrath. The answer to your question would be no. The infrastructure that we have allows us to essentially increase the size of that water line along Fort McKay, and adding that community center to the system has been looked at. There are some infrastructure that do need upgrades in the community, but it's not driven by the community center necessarily or these two new water lines.
Yeah, I certainly didn't want to single out the community center, but because that actually keeps a constant flow to the system, but also to allow for they have a housing plan on the First Nation, and they're going to be restricted. And if we're going to amend this budget, we might as well amend it properly so that we do it once, so that when the chief or the Métis Association want to bring some more people home, hook up some more houses, they have the velocity, they have the feed. Because like I say, Lance, I know the concern was, and we see it too, like on the emails and stuff. So if we're going to amend it, we should amend it with, I guess, knowing that we could add capacity. Because I know we do have some homes that are ready to be placed there that we actually donated as well. So just an observation from a public servant.
Thanks, Councilman Rath, and we'll look for that as it comes forward. I definitely support if it comes to a case where we need to increase the water flow there. Councillor Ball?
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to understand, I guess, what happened with the timeline on these. I mean, it was intended that the lion's share of the work on I don't know which project, it's hard to read on my phone here, Fort McKay Range Road and the South Water Line it was anticipated that the lion's share of the work was going to be done in 2024. And now that's just not the case. It's going to be 2025. So why the delay?
Through the chair to Councillor Ball, I'm not aware of any significant delays. The intent this year is to go out and do a significant amount of work. We've always had a plan to, execute a 2-year project. We're going to focus on 1109 this year to allow us to connect the community center into the system, and we'll start putting the water line sort of down in front of the fire hall and move as much as we can this year and come back the following year. One of the things we want to be cognizant of is safety in the community. We don't want to necessarily overwhelm the community with a significant amount of work, but at the same time, we do want to get out of there as quickly as possible so that there isn't any risk period with regards to safety. So, we did have a bit of a delay with the water line and the sidewalk. If anyone was familiar with that project, it originally started as a sidewalk, and we added the water line to Councilor McGrath's point of ensuring that we have capacity. So we are increasing that water line to allow the Métis the Métis, I suppose, and the hamlet and ourselves to develop that area as required as they grow. So in recent time, we haven't really seen a significant delay other than adding that water line.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at it as the cash flow model. I mean, to me, the cash flow tells you your progress. And in year one on the South Water Line, it's 5.5 million spent and $1 million in year two. And now those numbers are basically reversed, where it's 2 million in year one and 7 million in year two. So it just the way it reads to me is that the original plan was to do way more work and then finish the project off. Now it's to start the project and then it looks like a delay to me, but if you can look into it, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir, for the nice presentation. I have a question that once on the capital project, once you want to enhance the amount, increase the amount, do you incorporate the local councillor there? Is there any, I recommended, CEO, you must be knowing better than you can reply it. Did you get my question, sir? My question is, whenever there is a capital project and additional amount is being asked, is there any procedure to involve the local councillor in it so that he or she can physically see it?
Sorry. That's what we're doing now. We're bringing it here so the Hall of Council can see it and can hear it.
My question is only yes or no. Do you incorporate local councillor? I recommended in the past also that the councillors, wherever the project is, they could physically see it, but that would give more credibility to the recommendation.
We bring it to the Hall of Council And if any local councillor has any questions about their capital projects that are going on in their ward, we're quite happy to answer any other questions.
No, here asking question is just a theoretical matter. If it is physically seen, because it is in their area, whosoever the team is, the team should encourage it, invite the councillor to see it in person. This is my recommendation. May it be, maybe you like it or not.
I want to intervene there. I know where they're talking about Dogar, so.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Cronin, just be a minute there. Thanks, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Walkman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I really don't agree with this. When it comes to capital projects in the wards, especially in Fort McKay, Fort Fitzgerald, and Fort Chip, I think you guys need to address the councillors that are in that ward, whether it's one or both. There's a lot of things that need to be, I think the amendment needs to be more because of the water situation in our area. If you're going to do the water line to that community center, you guys should be looking at doing the water lines going all the way through to the homes. The homes are what's more important there. And if you guys see where Al's River, the intake line, that intake line is going to end up being dried up. I give maybe no more than 5 to 7 years. So we need lift stations and we need
Councillor
actual
Walkman, do you want to go to a question now and you can save that
projects.
for debate
Sorry.
points?
Yes, I do. Sorry. So I'm asking if you guys would be able to come out and do another amendment, because there's situations that have to be looked at.
I'm going to give that to Environmental Services.
Okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Wakan. So this project is one of multiple projects that we're currently doing in the community of Fort McKay. We do have the river intake, which is one project, one capital project, which includes a new intake on the Els River raw water line to go from the new intake to the ponds. We do have a project of upgrades at the water treatment plant that we're working with the First Nation community to put to market, which is going to be including MIEX, which is the same kind of pre-treatment that we're using in Conklin. We are looking at doing some upgrades, like as we continue to proceed with these projects, to the entire water treatment plant. And this water line to the community center, it's an upgrade to our current infrastructure that is not going to address the water concern that we currently have in the community. It's a separate project. So I understand what you're saying, and we are working with the community to look at what projects we can work on as we go. But right now, tying a project to increase the flow to the community to this project would not be relevant, because it's a completely different project, completely different design. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Partially, but if you guys are going to, like, I don't discourage working with the First Nations, but if you guys are going to come out to Fort McKay, I think what you need to do is also address the Fort McKay Métis, so that way we can also work with you when it comes to, the water situation that we currently have there.
Through the chair to Councillor Wakan, absolutely. I apologize if I made it sound like we're only communicating with the First Nation. That's not the case. We communicate with both groups. But we do have multiple projects that are in the books in the community of Fort McKay. And maybe what I'm hearing tonight is that we need to get together with both groups and bring everybody up to speed.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walkman. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Just listening to the conversation, and it occurs to me that sometimes we make decisions in isolation of bigger decisions. The water issue in Fort McKay is a much broader issue. It's about the intake, the Owls River, it's about the plant capacity and all of those things. So my question is, regardless of those things moving forward, this line is still going to be needed to service the building, correct?
To the chair, there's two projects at question here. One will service the community center in that area, and it will allow for future growth within the community. The second project increases the size of a water line from that main intersection in the community all the way back down to the bridge. So what that water line does is increases in size, it provides more fire flow, and it allows for future growth along Fort McKay South, which is the Hamlet section.
So at the end of the day, when we do get to a point with an upgrade to the water treatment plant, more water flow, more everything, this is still going to be needed once that happens, correct?
100%.
Okay, so at the end of the day, regardless of what happens at the back end, which still needs to occur, this still needs to happen, is what you're saying.
Through the chair, and I'll add on to Antoine, as you all know, I think I still work with Antoine, but directly for him. Together we created, we reviewed every piece of infrastructure related to environmental services a couple years ago now, and we made sure that we had essentially a plan in place over the next 2, 5, 10 years. We still continue to communicate with the folks within Fort McKay to understand needs and growth potential for the community, both on the nation and Métis side. So
and the reason I ask, part of the reason I ask this question is sometimes there's a forget, like, no matter what, we have to work with the federal government and the First Nations to increase the capacity of the water treatment plant before we can do anything, like in terms of providing more water or anything else. If that plant isn't increased, which is a whole lot of backdoor work with the federal government in terms of them being financially. Anyways, historically, from what I understand, is the municipalities paid for stuff that ought to have been paid for by the federal government. And I just want to always make sure that we're going after the right parties for the funding. So anyways, I just wanted to clarify that the infrastructure was going to be needed regardless. Okay. So
thanks, Councilor Granson. Do we have any delegates for this item?
We have no registered delegates. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have someone make the motion? Councilor Banjoko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the 2024 capital budget amendments as summarized on attachment 1, 2024 capital budget amendments, project amendments, net impact dated May 28, 2024 be approved, and that the revised cash flow of capital projects as summarized on attachments 2, 2024 capital budget amendment, project amendments, cash flow summary dated May 28, 2024 be approved.
Thank you, Councilor Banjoko, and thanks for a second, Councilor Weigel. Do we have any other debate, discussion, or comments from council? Councilor Walkwin?
I just have a question. So if this is passed, will there
Go ahead.
If this amendment is passed, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If this amendment is passed, is there going to be another amendment coming in towards doing another infrastructure from the community center onwards to the Fort McKay Métis?
Through the chair, I just want to, I have to ask you to clarify that question.
Okay, you guys are asking for an amendment for the water line that's going to the community center, right?
I want to pause you there. So through the chair. So I want to maybe clarify something that maybe not is clear. One project will see a new water line from the bridge to the main intersection in Fort McKay. In doing so, when we finish installing that water line, we'll be placing a new sidewalk from the bridge to that intersection. That was in the interest of safety within the community. We will be putting in new streetlights. We'll be having a new, I don't know if this is new, but yeah, a new community sign, a community area for that. Benches, crosswalks associated with that. So that's one project. It's not just the water line. And then 1109, when you get to that intersection, 1109 is when you sort of go left to the, there's a community gathering area on the First Nation side. It's a goat path at this point, but 1109 will be a brand new infrastructure, brand new water, sanitary, and we would have storm, a new road, and a sidewalk to allow access into the community center area.
Okay, that's where I misunderstood. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor, have any other questions, comments, or debate points? I'm not seeing any. I'll call for a vote.
In favor, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Elliot. Next up, we have the report on the 2024 Q1 Capital Budget Fiscal Amendment Update. I'd like to invite Laura Farquharson to introduce the report, please.
Good evening. I'm here this evening to provide a report on the capital budget fiscal amendments implemented by administration within the provisions of the Fiscal Responsibility Policy FIN 160, which occurred over the first quarter ending March 31st, 2024. There were 14 capital projects amended in the quarter as listed on Attachment 1, resulting in a net increase of $115,000 to the 2024 and prior year capital budget. I'd like to clarify a discrepancy in the published council report, which referenced a net increase to the 2024 and future years budget. None of these amendments are due to scope changes, and therefore the nature and type of capital projects were not altered. One of these amendments is due to a funding increase. However, the amount of the increase was under $500,000 and does not exceed 10% of the original capital budget. The amendments were reviewed and recommended by the Capital Project Steering Committee. The first 12 projects were funding swaps as follows. Active Transportation Phase 2 was adjusted to recognize a provincial grant of $50,000 from the Federal Active Transportation Fund, or ATF. The Anzac Lagoon Expansion Design and Construction was allocated federal funding of $9,855,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund, or CCBF. The Building Management Automation System received $1,120,714 in federal funding from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, or ICIP. Conklin Water Treatment Plant Upgrades Construction received federal funding of $3,089,600 from the ICIP. Fort Chipewyan 6-Bay Garage and Animal Care Control Facility received federal funding of $4,332,000 from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP. Gregoire Storm Outfall Structure Construction received federal grant funding of $1,800,000 from the Investing in Canada Community Building Fund. Prairie Creek Perimeter Trail received federal grant funding of $50,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund. Reflections Lookout received federal grant funding of $1,528,000, also from the ICIP. The RES Data Management System Replacement received provincial funding of $235,636 from the 911 grant. Road surface and alleyway improvements received federal grant funding of $1,500,000. This was also from the CCBF. Waterfront Park received federal grant funding of $231,986 from the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. Fort Chipewyan Pavement Rehabilitation Construction received federal grant funding of $63,916 from the Airport Capital Assistance Program. The next amendment was a cash flow adjustment for the rural water and sewer servicing. The amount estimated for the 2023 year was not sufficient to pay off work completed. Accordingly, a fiscal amendment was required to bring $475,000 into the year 2023 from 2024, so outstanding invoices could be paid. The final adjustment was for the rural community placemaking in Fort Chipewyan. The initial portion of rural community placemaking was delivered from 2011 to 2015. Materials for the deck portion of the project were stockpiled both inside and outside. Some materials deteriorated while others were not usable on the project due to safety code requirements. This resulted in insufficient materials required for the updated design, which included an accessibility ramp. Additional funds were requested to complete the project. The additional funding was $115,000, which was provided from the contingency reserve. These amendments align with the Fiscal Responsibility Policy, FIN 160, resulting in a net increase of $115,000 to the 2024 and prior year capital budgets. Administration is recommending that the 2024 Q1 capital budget fiscal amendment update be accepted as information. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Council? Councilor McGrath, question?
Thank you. Through the chair, our initial investments, we're probably taking a bit of a beating this year more than we did.
Through the chair to Councilor McGrath, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
It seems like some of our investments this year has been tough. No. When you go through your whole package?
That's my next presentation, sir.
No, but I'm just wondering, would that augment some of the cash that we're not going to have? I'll wait. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's just, it seems like we're putting cash into projects without any help. We're just trying to build a case. I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll wait for your next one.
Thanks, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Stroud?
I lowered my hand. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Stroud. Councilor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor, through the chair, to the presenters. Thank you for I wanted to ask about where's the stuff being stored here in Fort Chipewyan for it to fall short, or does more work need to be done by the administration to make sure that we have proper materials for the project? Because I see that it is on hold, and I didn't know that was happening.
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, your audio cut out. Could you confirm which project you were requesting information on?
He's actually gone offline. Maybe when he comes back, we'll go back to his question. Councillor Stroud, your hand's up again? You're on mute, Councillor Stroud, sorry.
Sorry.
There you go.
So, Lori, in looking under expenses, contracted services, the actual for the quarter was 13.7 million and the budget was 18.3. I was just wondering why there was this variance. I did note that as per the annual budget, the variance is only 527,000 due to less snow removal required.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, are you referring to my next presentation on the fiscal, the financial performance report?
Yeah, it's in the financial performance report.
Okay, so perhaps we should maybe finish up on the capital budget fiscal amendments?
Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Stroud. Do we have any questions from council? Do we have any delegates to the side? Or Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask procedurally, do we have to wait for certain number of months before you come with this capital budget amendments? Because like there's a whole lot to be processed. I'm just wondering aloud if we could have something that is more digestible.
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, are you referring to the timing in which we actually allocate the grant funding?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
just
so
wondering.
many of our grant, the contractual agreement does not allow us to actually report out on what we've received until we receive permission. So a lot of the federal funding that I spoke to, this actually occurred in 2023, our expenses, and we weren't allowed to publicly notify that we had applied the funding. So it was a bit of a catch-up from everything that happened last year.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Councillor Banjoko. Do we have any other questions? Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no delegates, thank you.
Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the 2024 Q1 capital budget fiscal amendment update as summarized on attachment 1, bracket 2024 capital budget fiscal amendments dated March 31st, 2024, and bracket be accepted as information.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Thanks for the second, Councillor Ball. Now, are there any other debate, discussion, or comments from council? Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one follow-up, Lori, to the comments that Kendrick was saying. If I'm hearing what you said correctly, there was a project scope change as it related to placemaking in Fort Chip. And I'm assuming because of that change, materials couldn't make it up to Fort Chip in a timely fashion. I do believe that's the question he was alluding to.
Through the chair. Actually, Director Smith might be able to assist me with this one. I can't recall who was managing this one. I do know that it was a project that had been delayed and the material, I'm not sure of the details. Do you have the history on that one, Keith?
Sure, I can try. Through the chair to Councillor, to the question. It's my understanding the last time I was updated on this project that the observation deck is the last part of placemaking Fort Chip 1. This deck has moved, I want to say, 3 times the location over the last 5 years. Due to its recent location, there's new code requirements when it comes to accessibility, building ramps and such, and there would need to be new footings and new materials. That is the cost of the increase for this. So the scope change that would have happened was in previous budgets, not this. This is for additional material in order to make it safe and sound.
Which I can appreciate. I guess it just, that creates this, and those 2 pieces of information need to just be more clear, that's all. There's a reason that there's a scope change, or there's a reason that this is happening, and that's the information that tells me as a councillor why I was missing that piece. So maybe in the future we can try and connect those dots a little bit. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Do you have any questions, comments, or debate points from council? I'm not seeing any, so I will call for a vote. Councillor Cardinal, how do you vote?
Trying to figure it out on the computer here, but I vote in favor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have the report on the 2024. Oh, sorry. Carried, 1 opposed. Next, we have the report on the 2024 Q1 financial performance report. I'd like to invite Laura Ferguson, Corporate Services, to introduce the report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here this evening to present the 2024 Q1 Financial Performance Report. For revenue, the year-to-date operating results to March 31st, 2024 are $154 million. The annual revenue projection is $614.5 million, which is an increase of $2.9 million over budget, which is primarily shown in government transfers being over budget by $846,000 due to the receipt of unbudgeted grants. Sales and user charges is over budget by $950,000 due to higher than expected use of commercial water and sewer treatment services. Penalties and costs on taxes are $850,000 over budget due to higher than anticipated overdue property taxes. And other revenues is over budget by $293,000, mainly due to an unbudgeted reimbursement of maintenance costs for the RCMP detachment. Expenses year to date to March 31st, 2024 are $133.3 million. The annual expense projection is $477.2 million, which is an increase of $3.2 million over budget. This is shown primarily in contracted and general services being under budget by $527,000. This includes $1.2 million in savings from lower than anticipated snow removal services as a result of less snowfall, partially offset by an increase in $400,000 for unbudgeted Fire Smart projects being covered by a grant. Materials, goods, supplies, and utilities is under budget by $315,000 due to lower than anticipated electricity and fuel costs. Purchases from other governments is projected to be over budget by $2.7 million due to the arbitration of the RCMP collective agreement. Provision for allowances is under budget by $829,000, mainly due to the higher than anticipated overdue property taxes. Transfers to individuals and organizations is over budget by $495,000 from additional grants being issued under the Community Plan on Homelessness. The municipality has an approved capital budget of $170 million. As of March 31st, 2024, the capital budget has increased by $2 million to $12 million stemming from the 2024 capital budget amendments in the first quarter. My apologies. The top three projects by spend are the Public Works North Facility, Fort McMurray Crossflow Clarifier Life Cycle construction, and the Fort McKay Community Center, representing 33% of the year-to-date spend. Under our banking and investments, the current cash in the bank plus investments totals $1,137.5 million as of March 31st. Our bank balance at March 31st was $36.3 million, and the investment holdings are a variety of securities as defined by the authorized investments under the MGA, which totals $1.1 billion for a total of $1,137.5 billion. The commitments against the cash and investment balance includes $197.8 million for operating requirements, $33.5 million in deferred revenues, and $438.3 million in committed reserve funds, leaving an uncommitted balance of $467.9 million to fund future priorities. You will note that the uncommitted balance has increased since my last report, which was $281.6 million. This is a result of ongoing work towards reconciliation and closure of completed projects, as well as the allocation of grant funding to approved initiatives. The municipality, with the exclusion of the subsidiary Part 9 agencies, does not have any debt. For grants, in 2024, the municipality has been awarded grants totaling $26.1 million during the first quarter, comprised of $18.2 million in capital grants and $7.9 million in operating grants. Applications continue to be submitted as grant opportunities arise. Under the Disaster Recovery Program, we have two extraordinary events that we continue to work with the province on. To date, the municipality has identified $33.3 million in expenses for the 2020 river breakup costs, of which we have received a $20 million advance. The municipality has an approved project estimate of $8.2 million, for which we will receive 90% of eligible costs for the 2023 Rocky River wildfire. As of March 31st, 2024, $4 million in costs have been incurred. Efforts towards recoverable expense identification are still in progress. No advance has been provided for this event. Administration is continuing to work with the province to submit eligible expenses for these DRP claims. The municipality continues to look for cost efficiencies while providing the programs and services as outlined in the 2024 operating budget. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Do we have any questions from council? Councilor Dogar? Oh, no. Do you have any questions from council? Councilor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you for the presentation, Lori. So in regards to my question, under expenses, contractor services actual for the quarter was 13.7 million and the budget was 18.3 million. I'm just curious why there was this variance. I did note that as for the annual budget, the variance is only 527,000 due to less snow removal required.
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, generally speaking, when we allocate a budget, it is calendarized over 12 months. It's far from a perfect science. So at this stage, we generally see our construction season kicking off around now and carrying through to maybe October. So we generally experience the higher volume of expenses later in the year. So this is really just a timing thing.
Okay. And in regards to your grants, does the low-income transit program grant, which was received, include the whole region?
Through the chair to Councillor Stroud, I would have to check the grant details and get back to you on that.
Okay, I appreciate that, Lori. And also maybe you can get back to me. You've got funding for wildfire community preparedness for days in, for example, Conklin, which grant funding was received. And I'm just curious when those are taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stroud. Councilor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report. And first of all, I'd like to appreciate administration and all the works that went into getting the grants of 26.1 million total. So thank you for all that. My question is, are we still expecting more? Is there a prospect for more this year? This is just for the first quarter, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, that's correct. We continue to apply for grants. I'm not sure exactly what we have that isn't reported. There's some things that we can't publicly report, but we are constantly working with the province and federal government and other agencies. As grants become available, everybody in administration is always sending emails on the subject, and we only have one grant administrator, but she is kept very busy working on all this.
That work is well appreciated. Thank you. So we need to continue. Then my other question, Dennis, I'm wondering why we haven't got anything back for the Fort Chipman, the fire, they spent on the Fort Chip fire.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Banjoko, it's a very long process. So we are still working on the flood, and we have a critical deadline. We requested an extension to the end of this year for the 2020 flood, and we only have one resource in that area. We are in the process of hiring additional resources, one dedicated to the fire. So our existing resources have been assisting with doing the submissions for the fire, but for the 2023 event.
Thank you.
But it's all a timing issue as well. So.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Banjoko. Councilor Boussier?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bowman. Through the chair, Laurie, thanks for the presentation. Laurie, just getting back to grants, I've asked this before. I believe we're doing a better job than probably in the past. Do we have any idea how much money we miss or lose out on because we don't have maybe the resources in-house to apply for these? Or because I've heard some grants can be hours or weeks in the making, and if we only have one dedicated person, what if we hired two more? Would there be?
Through the chair to Councillor Boussier, it's difficult to say. I mean, there are only so many grants that are available out there. I believe that we are hitting the majority of the available grants from the federal and provincial government, and we do have partners that, you know, reach out to us and let us know that there is grant availability. An additional resource would allow us to be more proactive than reactive for sure. We have started to now track where we haven't received a grant and why. And we have had some challenges on the reporting side and having to make constant changes. And, you know, our partners can get a little frustrated with that. So the team is doing a fantastic job. We have a new group pulled together, and those relationships are continuing to build. So,
Do we have any, you mentioned tracking, do we have any idea of how much money we miss out? What percentage of?
through the chair to Councillor Boussier, we've only just started tracking that a few months ago. I can't remember if it's included in this report or not.
I guess I'm just more interested if we are tracking it, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, we would apply for grants and then we wouldn't actually receive any funding, and we wouldn't always know the why either, but we have started to track those metrics.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Boussier. Councilor Cardinal?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Laurie. I wanted to ask about the timeline. So you're saying the last year, so we reapplied last year, of course, yeah, for the flood, an extension last year. So how long was the extension?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, it's only till December 31st, 2024. So we have till the end of this year to submit all of the eligible expenses.
Okay, so now I remember that. I guess one of the other things would be is like how much of a timeline do you figure that the fire would take for gathering all the information to be able to distribute some of the funds back to the nations?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, that's a very complicated question. I'm not sure of the extent to where we are at looking at all of the expenses, and we have, as I said, we're going to hire a dedicated resource to focus on the fire. It's going to take some time. I know we have provided some funding that we have given to some of the Métis. If it's First Nations, then they would be working with the federal government. So a lot of our expenses are very complicated because they're coming from different sources. So we're working through some of those when we can. But the priority in the short term is to try to finalize the $33 million in out-of-pocket expenses that RMWB has incurred with the flood. And we've got 7 months to do that.
Thanks. I wanted to ask, I know that there was some, well, that's going to be a tough question. I don't know if we can answer that one. I mean, that might be Jody's line there, because it's some of the stuff that was billed some of the stuff that was billed to us as the municipality wasn't approved, and I is there a reason just because it was the emergency, or some of the extra work that was put in when wasn't approved. How are we dealing with that? Is there any legal involvement there?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, I'm not aware of anything that wasn't approved. I know that we had done an estimate that we presented to the province, and they actually felt that our expenses might be higher. So we have an approved application of $8 million. I think it's a little bit more than that. I don't have the exact number in front of me. But it takes a great deal of time. Every single expense has to be validated and presented in a particular format and sent back to the province for them to review and approve or not approve.
Thanks, Lori. How much of a difference would it be in work-wise between the fire and the flood for applications? Is it just similar, or how does that look?
Through the chair to Councillor Cardinal, the fire is only around $8 million, and the flood, we have identified expenses in excess of $33 million. So you can imagine that there's a lot more involved with the $33 million. There's going to be a lot more expenses.
Okay, I got one more question actually. What was the timeline again till December from the flood? It was 2020, so they're 4 years?
I'm not sure when the DRP claim actually started for the flood, but because it was a provincial event, it wasn't just our community that was on the DRP claim. So that was why we had the challenge with the timeline, because every jurisdiction that was impacted by that flood had to submit the claim to the province. So we were actually very fortunate that we received approval for an extension to December 31st of this year.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Can I have someone make the motion? Councillor Weigel.
I move that the 2024 Q1 financial performance report be accepted as information.
Thank you, Councillor Weigel, and thank you for the second, Councillor Bussier. Do we have any more discussion, debate, or comments or questions from council? I'm not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. Councillor Cardinal? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lori. Moving on to item number 10, Councillor's motion. I'll ask Councillor Bussier to read out his motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. That the motion is that the Community Identification Committee and Administration explore opportunities to name existing and future municipal facilities after retired or deceased elected officials.
Thank you, Councillor Bussier. Do you want to speak, or can I have someone second that, please?
Yeah, thank you. I think...
Thanks for the second, Councillor Weigel.
What's that?
Go ahead, Councillor Bussier.
Okay. I think the CIC committee has done a great job in honoring local citizens and past citizens and elected officials. And I guess if you look around, the last development or the most recent development, Henning Ridge or Saline Creek, has already have street names. And unless we see a significant growth in the community, I'm not sure if we're going to see any more need to name streets. So that kind of left me with Guy's recent passing, Guy Boutillier. I just thought, you know what, there's an opportunity here to maybe look at some of our facilities that have not been named. And I get there's a trade-off between selling naming rights like we do, and I also recognize that there's obviously some folks that have served for long periods of time in the community, have given back, Guy being one of them, you know, Melissa, obviously Mayor Blake, Phil Marr, you know, and I look around, and is there anything stopping us from, you know, naming the Birchwood Trails after Phil Marr? even Councillor Stroud, maybe the Anzac Rec Center is named after Councillor Stroud, or Lady J, as McGrath calls her. So I'm just looking for some help and support from the group here that sit around and vote on this. And if there's an opportunity, maybe that administration and CIC can come back. And I don't know how you measure it. Do you measure that someone's got to serve 15 years, 20 years, 3 terms, 4 terms? I don't know. But hopefully, we can bring something back. I know the Sunny Flat Aquatic Center. I know we've done things for Chuck Knight and Claire Peden and a number of other officials that are elected officials that served and gave back to the community. So I guess it's just to do something sooner than later. And if there's a will, hopefully there's a way. And I open it up to the rest of the folks to offer their input. But I just, again, I'm at loss. Do you base it on years of service, terms? I don't know. I'm just looking for some help. And, we've got hopefully some twin arenas coming. I would like to see, the one that I would like to see, but it's probably under Alberta Health Services, is to name the continuing care on Hospital Street after Guy or Dave McNeely. I mean, they were both very passionate about the community and our seniors. And so, so I'll leave it with everybody else to contribute.
Thanks, Councillor Boussier. Do we have any delegates to this item?
We have no delegates, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I completely back you on this, Councillor Boussier. I think it's great, and I think that new facility, if we get it built next to Willow Square, I think we're end up going to be paying for the building, so I think we can name it whatever we want. I think when you're paying for it, you can do whatever you want. And the twin arenas, I think there's a lot of opportunities for Guy. He had a lot invested in that facility, but as well as minor sports. I know in conversations with him, he was a big advocate for the children up here in their sports. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly, Lance, Councillor Boussier, your dad was a great addition to this CIC, and it was a pleasure to serve with him and Ron Morgan, Mr. Carberry. And I think you're exactly right to honor those statesmen and statesladies. Mrs. Collicott, Judy Dix, lots of good people in the community. I think it's a great idea. And sometimes it's nice when they're alive, And through the chair to our mayor, the commitment by the Alberta government was to name a wing for boots at the continuing care centre, but we went through a bit of an election. But I know Mayor Bowman took it up. We spoke about it a few days after he passed, because it's only fitting. And you take a lady like Mrs. Verkel, she never missed a ladies' luncheon at the Christmas gala for the Northern Lights all her life. So I commend you for bringing something forward. And the only thing it costs is a bit of time for people to sit around. Shell and Germain, brings kids, thousands together. So I commend you. I certainly support you. And I think the mayor is going to see the premier again next week. And she was a big fan of Guy's. And I think that if we could get this done before Christmas, I think Old Boots is up there. I think, it's not bad. I think it's well deserved. So thank you for bringing it up. Both of you guys.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Dogar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. It's a very good, great idea. The names which have been already taken is really worth recognition. But I have also 2 names. One is of Frances Jeans. Madam did a lot for the immigrants also, for everybody also. Okay. And then the ex-fire chief also, 2016, he did extremely good. Probably you people know more than me. These 2 names are from my side. Please consider them, make some merit, and alive, those who were paid for their jobs, take little less priority. Those who voluntarily did and out of passion did, like Guy Butler was one. You know, he was a mayor, he was a MLA, he was a minister, and suddenly he felt that he is needed as a councillor. He stepped down and ran as a councillor and set a great example, precedence for the youth also, that it is not the status which matters, it is the service which matters. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Dogar. Councillor Walkman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great idea there, Councillor Bouzier. Why wait until someone leaves? Why not acknowledge them while they're still here? I like the idea of Lady J in the Anzac Rec Center. That's an awesome, thing to bring up. But yeah, we shouldn't have to wait until someone leaves the earth in order to acknowledge them. If we acknowledge them while they're still here, then at least, they know the commitments that they have done and how they were done, done well. I really, really support that idea.
Thank you, Councillor Walkman. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair. Unless I'm mistaken, this already exists within the policy that is currently there. That's why we have the Chuck Knight Center and the Ron Morgan Park. Like, that already exists. I think the difference is you have to put in an application. So if Loretta wants or Councillor McGrath wants the building in Zach changed, then it's an application that goes back to the committee that takes it under consideration and goes forward. So I believe it's already there. It's just the process on how a name gets brought to the forefront, which maybe requires clarity. Because if it wasn't there, we wouldn't have these facilities named after people already. So I believe it exists anyways. I just think maybe it's a tweaking of if council or Councillor Boussier or somebody wants something brought to the forefront, it just goes back to the committee, which I believe the policies already allow. That's my understanding. Administration, correct me if I'm wrong.
Through the chair to the question, that's correct. That process exists where if somebody in the community wants to nominate a facility or a street after somebody, they put in an application, it goes to the committee, and they decide who and what gets named based on the applications that come forward.
I believe that the process that exists right now allows for an equitable fairness. My concern with something like this is then all of a sudden we start getting everything named after politicians versus there are a lot of other very reputable people within our community. So the process we have right now allows an appropriate consideration for all people who are nominated. So I just wanted clarity on that.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thank you, Councillor Gutierrez, for bringing this motion forward. I totally agree that there are elected officials that are very deserving of this. Their hard work and dedication helped develop our region to what it is today, a thriving and healthy community. And I think we can make an amendment to the policy to include what you're recommending here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stroud. Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman. Thank you, Councillor Boussier, for bringing this forward. I think I can agree with you. It's good to give the honor to those who are deserving and they've worked hard to create what we are seeing today. And I also support giving the flowers when the person can still smell it. So if there's anyone alive, I would love to see them receive their flowers while they are alive. And for those who are gone, we can bring the families in. As for the procedures, I believe if we pass this motion tonight, then we can go forward from there and align our motion, if passed, with the procedure. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko.
No question in my...
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, through the chair. And I, you know, as Councillor Bouzier, I can make an ass of myself lots of times, so I never use the word assume, because I know that you, since a kid, you've been part of this naming process, and what you came here this evening with is certainly different than what is set up today. And I've served on the committee probably 5, 6 years, wonderful people, all of them. And every time there was a politician's name came up, it never got to light of day because we're afraid. So I think what you're trying to do this evening, sir, is kind of put a silo and recognize some of the public servants that never got that due diligence at the table because we're scared to promote one another. And I know Lady J wouldn't want to go on the Anzac facility. She'd rather go on those big fancy lights she has, and I'd put the first one out there for her. So I think that, just for clarity, I guess, I know where you're coming from, sir, because I got a few hours on there, and I commend you for bringing it forward because, as Lady J said, I think it needs to be worded as such, where maybe there's the present-day councillors have that selection if it comes forward. Because I can tell you from my own experience, I know we were 4 years pushing Guy's name to the province. And then he got involved and got screwed up. So now we can make it better again. So I appreciate what you're saying, sir.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Councillor Cardinal.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the motion there, Councillor Bouzier. I really like how passionate everybody is about their families and acquaintances and, you know, friends and politicians and all the good things that they've done in the past and currently. Lady J, great idea, but I don't know about it. No, I want to recommend a friendly amendment if we're going to be supporting some sort of this motion. I really admire Councillor Boussier's motion, but I'd like to make an amendment to it if that's possible.
Okay, what's your friendly? You can just give us your friendly amendment, and it'll be up to Councillor Boussier to approve it. Councillor Cardinal.
Okay. Well, in the spirit of reconciliation, not only do we recognize local leaders, but you know, depends on the area and the policy that's put in place. But I really do want to add in there that we add traditional healers, as long as or Métis and First Nation leaders to be added to that motion that Councillor Boussier put in. Maybe I should make it a little less difficult, adding the Métis president, Métis leaders, and the First Nation leaders as well. Or is that part of the elected officials?
Do you want to speak?
Yeah, through the chair to Kendrick, Councillor Cardinal. Yeah, no, that would include elected officials, in my opinion, and I have no problem with that. I mean, I'm sending it back for the committee, and I guess just to speak to Councillor Grannison's comment. So the reason I brought this forward, Councillor Grannison, is because I did get an email back, and the CIC committee looks like they removed elected officials in June of 2022, except for Guy and Mike Allen. Everybody else was removed. I have the minutes, so I'm not going to get an argument. That's the reason it's brought forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Boussier. Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Grannison.
Yeah, this isn't an argument. It's just maybe some more of the information other than just the minutes. So the people that were removed were like me, because basically the way it was is Stu could come along and say, let's name Jubilee Center for Al Grandison because he's an elected official. That's what was there, and that's what was removed. So let's be clear about it.
Okay.
Well, that's not what I got.
Do you have any other questions, comments, or debate points from council? I'm not seeing any.
No,
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor
I'm
Cardinal.
still wondering if Lance is going to agree to the specific amendment that I recommended.
Councillor Cardinal, I think where it says elected official, that includes Métis elected officials.
Okay, well, I think that just for clarity, let's be in that spirit, and let's just say that we are in agreement of this because we feel that it's as pertinent and important that we recognize the part of the reconciliation process. Not that it's just elected officials. It's a different form for us as Métis people, as well as chiefs and leaders. I know it's elected officials, but we got to be able to keep our traditional way of life in our communities, not be called elected officials like there's chiefs and presidents. Like, it's not just elected officials. We got to remember to still recognize that as municipal leaders. And I think it's really important that we do that.
Okay, so your friendly amendment would be to retire or deceased elected officials, including Métis presidents?
And chiefs.
And chiefs? Councillor Boussier?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with Kendrick.
Councillor Boussier is good with that amendment. Councillor Cardinal?
I'll just make sure that we get it right for Councillor Cardinal.
Through the chair, may I recommend that it state at the end of the sentence, retired or deceased elected officials, including chiefs, Métis presidents, and Indigenous leaders?
Thank you. Yes.
Would that meet the intent of what was just presented?
It works for me.
Councillor Cardinal?
Councillor, yeah. Did he hear it?
There's more I want to say because I guess the naming process would have to come. The naming process behind it as well. It's more than just. I'd appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cardinal.
Thank you.
Councillor Banjoko?
Thank you, Mayor Bowman, and thanks, Councillors Cardinal and Boussier. I was trying to say we should use Indigenous so that it covers Métis and everyone else, because I think Métis is certainly different from other nations, right?
When it comes to Indigenous, they're both.
Same.
They're the same.
Okay.
Indigenous is Métis, Inuit.
Okay. And I just wanted to be sure we wouldn't exclude any First Nations by putting one or two. So whatever time would cover the leaders, regardless of the exact group, I think that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banjoko. Councillor Grandison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, again, want to kind of add a little bit of clarity because we had, as Councillor Boussier had indicated, there was some names that were removed. I'll give you an example. Several of those names were people who were elected in a by-election that were on council for 6 months. And the wording was an elected official. So it didn't matter whether you were elected for 5 minutes or 5 weeks. You could get a building named after you. That's what was removed, was that. So that there had to be merit to the individual. So that still exists, as I understand it, within the policy, that there is merit to the individual whose name is being brought forward for a building or for something else, not just a title. The title of an elected official could be somebody who was there for 5 days. And that's what we're trying to clean up, right? So.
Thanks, Councillor Grandison. Amanda, do you want to add to that?
Just to add some clarity for what it's worth, it is correct that names of elected officials were removed from the inventory. However, there was a statement in the minutes that captures the exception of those names where significant contribution to the community has been recorded. So there is an area for flexibility for consideration of other names. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walkwin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for clearing that up, Amanda. I think just the word Indigenous straight across would mean all, because it does include Inuit, it includes First Nations, Métis. So I think just in the label of Indigenous would be.
So what the motion reads right now for clarity, it should be on everyone's screen, that the Community Identification Committee and Administration explore opportunities to name existing and future municipal facilities after retired or deceased elected officials, including chiefs, Métis presidents, and Indigenous leaders. That's how it reads right now.
And Indigenous leaders, yeah.
Yeah, Indigenous leaders. Yeah, it's up on the, I can't read.
I was just trying to think of it in my head, but yep, I'm good with that.
Councillor Cardinal?
No, I was going to say, sounds great, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cardinal. Councillor Dogar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The politicians should not be debarred from on this list. They could be, but you know, every politician doesn't qualify if he is paid properly and he's done his duties. Any politician who has done some extraordinary good. Why I recommend Guy Butler? Because he did extraordinary. He was a minister, and second day, and he wanted to come as councillor, not for ambition of money or status, only to service of the community. Something extraordinary should be seen. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I definitely support your motion, Councillor Boussier. I think it's a great motion and something that probably should have been brought forward a long time ago. And like Councillor Banjoko said, it's nice to get flowers and you can smell them. So I think if we can't do that, we can definitely step up and appreciate some of those past people that have left us. Do you want to make any closing comments?
No, just thank Kendra Cardinal and Loretta for their help with the new motion. So I'm good.
Thank you, Councillor Boussier. So I'll call for a vote. Councillor Cardinal? Thank you. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. And that concludes this evening's meetings. Marcy Cho, Kinross Compton, thank you and have a good night.